Hello and welcome back to the CCS Diamond Invitational, where only two teams remain to battle it out on the Rift in the grand finals here tonight. My name is Lindor, here today with Orion, and we are locked and loaded, ready for this series. So without further ado, let's introduce our teams for tonight. On the blue side, for game number one, it is ShadowZ. That is Nodal in the top lane. In jungle, Furry Bush. Taking up residence in the mid lane will be Goat BM, and an 80 carry and support. It is LFT different and all for love.
And over for the red side, obviously we have TA Distortion, top lane, Samanuski, or just Sam. Pretty hard to pronounce actually for a name. Blender in the jungle, definitely having some very solid performance in this tournament. I think the standout player for this team has to be Bobby in the mid lane for TA Distortion. Zeha and Perfect Tempo operating in the bot lane. So definitely should be a very exciting matchup to watch.
Absolutely, and it looks like we are getting some ready checks for draft here already, so we'll keep the intro a little bit short and sweet here, Orion, but let's talk about how these teams got here, right? Because they kind of had slightly different paths through this tournament. I think TA Distortion maybe didn't fare quite as well, but let's take a look here, because TA Distortion, they were 8-6 through the tournament. They started off taking down going 3-1 in qualifiers before taking down their sister team in the quarterfinals and barely eking out a victory last week against Lit Esports Red in a very close series that I think they probably would have liked to go a little bit easier for them, but now they're here in the semifinals. They can forget about what happened last week. They should have all of their focus here on this matchup tonight.
Yeah, definitely. I think reverse sweeping your way into the grand finals isn't probably the most cleanest way to actually make it through. But actually, both of these teams ended up reverse sweeping all the way through. I think for ShadowZ, it was a little bit different. They didn't have their full roster for the first two games, and then for the last three, they had it, and they basically 3-0'd at Dorado Gaming Alpha with their complete roster. So, and it wasn't particularly all that close from what I ended up watching, at least the back half of the cast. But we are getting into draft here, and a lot of these bans are to be expected. I think Samanuski has basically had his GP banned the entire tournament. I think he got it one time and popped absolutely off on it, as well as having some very stellar Olaf performances as well. And then for TA, they're recognizing that All for Love is basically an enchanter only player with Soraka and the Yumi, and then giving another respect ban over as well. But that does leave open the Seraphine, which has been a very poignant pick of attack for ShadowZ. Most likely going to be going into the hands of All for Love in the support position, but it is still a flexible champion.
Definitely can be a flex pick. Like you say, is going to be expected to go into All for Love's hands. Loves those enchanters, and Seraphine has shown to be very, very strong throughout this tournament. Team Ambition on the red side for game number one. We'll see what their answer is going to be. Jinx would not be a surprise. I'm expecting both of these 80 carries to play for those late game hyper-scaling team fighters, and that is going to be the lock-in.
Yeah, and I'm curious to see what TA is going to look to do here, because typically, I know they have their own solo lane type of lane dominance type per se. I know the mid lane for TA, Bobby, likes to play the long range mages. Did pull out the Singed actually in last week's match, so it could be something to look out for potentially as one comes through. Instead, they're going to go a little bit more of a flexible option here in the Gragas, a champion that can be played obviously most likely in the top or the jungle position, can theoretically go into support, but most likely is going to be up on the top side of the map. ShadowZ hovering over a couple of champions here. Blitzcrank, even though Seraphine has been locked in, could be a theoretical for the jungle because of its changes that's been received. I haven't quite seen it in competitive play yet. I have played it in solo queue against a couple times, and I gotta say, it's very annoying to deal with because he can walk at you at level 3 and he just punches you in the fit, he just fists you, and there's not really anything you can do about it. But instead, they're gonna go with the very common bot lane, Ashe Seraphine. You have the natural slows from Ashe, and you have the ability to tether with Seraphine as well. You have the additional where you can root and stun somebody. Instead, they're going to go a little bit more for a bit of a ball type of composition here, locking in the Aatrox here for Nadal up in the top side of the map. They've actually banned it and played it several times in this tournament alone, so they have a lot of high priority on this champion specific. But Samanuski did pull out the Fiora earlier in this tourney. It could be a champion we might end up seeing out of him unless that Gragas is going to go up in the top side of the map. So we might have to watch out for that one later on in the draft as we go. But instead, they're going to lock in their bot lane here with the Lulu for Zeha on the bot side of the map. Definitely going to play a bit of a hyper carry game here for Zeha, something we haven't seen quite yet in this tourney.
Both teams locking in those bot lanes, scaling carries, enchanters to help them out, and then some bruiser front lines to help round out the start of their compositions. We'll see where they go towards the bans here. Not at all surprised to see Kindred banned away here. Team Ambition do occasionally like playing that double marksman composition with the Kindred in the jungle. So ShadowZ not wanting to see that one here. And we'll see what else TA want to be squeezing here. Kali's a little bit of an interesting ban from them, I do think, but that's what they're going for. Sejuani as well, not wanting to give over that strong, beefy front line. So, yeah, we're going to see what we get here out of the last ban out of ShadowZ. It might be more focused towards that jungle, but maybe going to take away some of those mage picks.
Yeah, definitely a split ban here, obviously, for Lithens. Actually, instead, ShadowZ might be targeting, yep, they are going to end up targeting Blender a little bit more.
Okay.
Maybe wanted to see a little bit coming through. Instead, they're going to end up slamming the Jarvan the fourth. And so far, TA have drafted two very dash-oriented champions, and Poppy is still available for ShadowZ if they end up going for it. It is going to be the Hover. They're debating between the Trundle as well. I would be very surprised if it's not the Poppy, just because it interacts so well against Gragas and Jarvan the fourth. You can protect Seraphine, you can protect Ashe, and there's no real way of actually getting on top of them without committing the Cataclysm or even the explosive cast from Gragas. Instead, it looks like, yep, it is actually going to end up being the Trundle, maybe a little bit more early game oriented instead. They don't quite want to have the Poppy, who is can still get off those early game ganks, but is a little bit more, can be more tanky oriented, and has the ability to be a bit better of a team fighter than Trundle typically is. Instead, GoPM going to go very short range mid lane scaling here for the Cassiopeia potentially. It is just hovered, has not quite been locked in just yet. Oh, never mind. It is going to be the Ahri, so a little bit more playmaking this time around out of GoPM, and I'm pretty sure GoPM has not played the Ahri just yet in this tournament. I'm going to recheck before I say anything further. Yep, has not played Ahri just yet in this tourney, so something we have not quite expected out of him. And usually for Bobby, it's usually the long range mages in the mid lane. Swain would be a little bit out of his character as well. There it is.
Might flex it around, see what they want to go for. We did see some Swain in the series last week, but this time we're going to get the Syndra. So that's going to be rounding out the composition here for Team Ambition. And Orion, we talked a little bit about how these teams have similar play styles. I think that that's pretty evident right here out of this draft for game number 1.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, for stylistically, these teams are kind of like a mirror. Like, they typically have tanky bruisers on the top side of the map. They have junglers that are a little bit more team oriented, maybe less of the carry oriented. Except Bot Blender in the past series against Lit Esports Red did play a little bit more of those carry type of junglers. This time, opting in for the Jarvan, who is more of a gank enabler, setting up your team for success early on into the game. These are typically the AP mages to come out for the mid laners, and then bot side does actually tend to be hyper carry oriented and enchanter supports. So at this point, it's basically going to kind of come down to a little bit execution, because I think TA's composition might be a little bit easier. But the point and click, you just press R and you can pick somebody off very, very simply. But ShadowZ also have very similar tools as well. You have the Ash Arrow, you have Encore, you have a Spirit Rush from RA dashing forward, landing those charms into chaining the CC together. So really, both these teams have lots of ways of actually getting on top of each other. So I think I usually say it a lot. Typically, it does kind of come down to the execution, but this game is really, really important for execution, because it is very skill shot oriented champions, except for maybe the Cataclysm. And if you do land those abilities, you have to be able to hit those markers very, very quickly and start turning the tide of the fight.
Yeah, both teams have some very strong engage tools. Both teams have that traditional front line with some DPS options in the back. I think TA might have a slight scaling advantage with the Jinx Lulu, but nothing that I think is super game-breaking for this game number 1. So I think you're right. I think execution, specifically around these junglers through the early game, is going to be very important, because a little lead goes a long way when both teams are trying to playing for the same style and playing around objectives, playing for team fights. So with that in mind, Orion, what lanes do you think are these junglers going to have their eyes on? Where do you want to see them playing around?
I would imagine in the mid lane, just because both these mid laners are typically very vulnerable pre-6, especially Ari, and you can have the chain CC from Syndra and the Jarvan the Fourth. The flag can come through as well. But if Fairy Bush is able to recognize that and counter gank those opportunities, then you can really set TA behind, because Jarvan the Fourth, he wants to be active early. He wants to make these kinds of plays early and on the map, because his team fighting just kind of diminishes, or his presence in the game diminishes as the game goes on. Because even with Cataclysm, you have champions like Seraphine that like to be in a ball anyways. So if you put her in a Cataclysm, as long as she's able to get the empowered W off, it might not always be that effective of a Cataclysm to come through. So it's going to be pretty interesting to see how, for Blender in this game. But I will say this game is a bit interesting because Difference has mostly played the hyper carry, the team typically plays around him. He is playing the more utility type of style to carry this game. Not to say that Ashe isn't going to be popping off, doing crazy damage, but her team fight is nothing really compared to Jinx's on the other side of the map that Zeha will be piloting in this game. So it is going to be a different type of style, at least for Different per se, so far that we've kind of seen out of him in this tournament. So will he kind of be able to, turn that switch off a little bit for okay, I might not be the hypercarry of the team, but if I can land the crucial arrows and I can be very lane dominant, because Seraphine Ashe is a very prominent lane. Lulu does just get completely outranged in this lane. Lulu is the pick here because they want the better team fighting. They were not picking for lane whatsoever. And I know Ashe Seraphine should be able to dominate the bot side of the map. So if Blender can't really get anything going, I can definitely see ShadowZ potentially winning out on almost all 3 of these lanes. And then Blender's going to have to be able to be the one to be the difference in the early stage of the game, I think.
We'll have to see what Blender can get done. I think a lot of pressure on Zeha's shoulders as well in this match. Like you say, the Lulu drafted to enable him late game. He's got the front line in front of him, and they are drafting resources to play around that scaling AD carry. We're going to see how these teams are going to fare as we jump onto the Rift here for game number 1. So without further ado, we'll meet you on the Rift. The teams are ready, Orion and I are ready, and I hope everyone out there is also ready, because it is time for the CCS Fall Invitational Diamond Grand Finals. Orion, doesn't like we'll get anything too exciting here on the level 1. Both teams probably have some nerves here, heading into the early stages of this series, not wanting to have anything too crazy happen here.
Yeah, I mean, even though like this isn't necessarily like a league or like anything where these teams have been like working months and months for, like this is still a pretty big tournament in terms of like all the other thing that's going on. Like, there's not a whole lot of other action, right? Like, no leagues are currently going, I think, or at least no major ones. Maybe some small tourneys here or there. So at least for the rest of the year, this might be one of the bigger tourneys that ends up happening across all the leagues. So I definitely can imagine that these players are definitely kind of feeling it a little bit, at least. But I am happy to see that both teams are piloting at least their main rosters across the board. I know TA Distortion has never had that problem, but ShadowZ has definitely had some roster inconsistencies, at least so far in this tournament. But it does look like junglers are at least starting on the same side of the map, and this could be pretty important for Furrybush, at least, because he is going to want to match Jarvan's early game pace, right? Because while Trundle might not be the best ganking jungler, he is really good at countering and making sure if the end jungler does look for a play, if he's there, he can be a great punishing part of the early game. So curious to see, right, what the pathing is going to look like for both these junglers, because that's where most of the early action is going to be.
Absolutely true. We'll keep tabs on them as they head towards those first few gank attempts. But I want to go back around to something you mentioned, because you said both these teams at full strength. Definitely good to see. You also mentioned, you know, how they're going to want to get a win here in this tournament. I think both these teams have kind of a chip on their shoulder coming off of their summer split. For ShadowZ, they were second in the Aegis Defenders League, got knocked out in the grand finals, and didn't get to walk away from that split with a chip. And same thing can be said, actually, excuse me, ShadowZ was from BOL. I'm mixing my teams up here. TA Distortion were the second team out of Aegis Defenders League, got lost in the finals, have a bit of a chip on their shoulder. And same thing for ShadowZ. They were the #1 seeded team heading in to the Blue Otter League playoffs. They got knocked out in semifinals in a series that a lot of people thought they should have won. So I think both these teams looking for a little bit of redemption coming off of their summer splits.
Yeah, absolutely. Especially, I mean, I feel like, you know, both these teams probably feel like as Blender actually hovering over the wall. Yeah, you have to immediately flash right back over. That's the power of the Trundle, right? Like, he's not necessarily the best ganking jungler, but if he's in a good position and he can see Jarvan the Fourth flag and drag over the wall, he can definitely be a punishing person. And it does look like, you know, Jarvan the Fourth is currently on a ward, and Furrybush does see him out, so he's actually going to be able to take the bottom crab away from the Jarvan, and that's going to end up sending Jarvan pathing back up to his top side that only has the Krug up and able to take. So it does actually going to mean that Furrybush is going to be a little bit ahead of the pace here from Blender. Blender doesn't really have that many options in terms of what he's looking to do, because Nadal is already pushing in the top side of the map. He could look for a play onto mid, but GoBM already recognizing that he could be in some danger, placing a ward and getting a recall off as well.
Laning prowess on display here from the side of ShadowZ. Blender gonna get found out again by Furrybush here. He's actually just walking forward. He's got to be careful. Flag and drag over the wall will get him to safety. But yeah, this Trundle pick for Furrybush has done a great job of neutralizing Blender so far through the early stages.
And that's just a good read, right? Like we talked about, like really the only play that Jarvan the Fourth really has right now is going towards his top side. So Furrybush recognizes that, paths up to the top side of the map, making sure that he still can't really get anything going at this stage of the game. So Furrybush, really good job recognizing that kind of potential and completely nullifying that one out. But it does look like resets are coming through for a lot of the lanes. Items being purchased up, and Jarvan the Fourth once again on another ward on his Raptor camp. So they do have full information on where he is. So really, a gank really should theoretically not ever happen. But I have to wait and see.
ShadowZ have winning lanes in all 3 lanes, as you kind of expected, Orion. And they're doing a great job, like you say, of warding out Blender, making sure he can't get creative with his pathing and get into any of these lanes. We saw him try to go for that creative pathing flag and dragging over the Dragon Pit, trying to get the wraparound on the bot lane, but was spotted out.
Oh,
and now he's in the mid lane though. Oh, Goat BM, he does land the flash, or the charm rather. Now he has to flash away. Auto's coming through from Bobby. Is he gonna have enough? He's gonna flash. He just autos him straight down, gets the first blood, does die for his efforts, but his first blood now to TA Distortion.
That's honestly a very big feels bad there for Bobby, because Syndra losing Flash is much more important than Ahri losing Flash, especially on these level 6 timers as well, because Ahri will have access to her Spirit Rush where she can actually dash forward onto Syndra, make a much easier play of landing that charm. And if Trundle's ever in the area, Trundle can just very easily just smack down onto Syndra and make a very easy play happen there. So very big feels bad there for Bobby, but at least he was able to pick up the kill in return and able to do it just there. Sam doing a nice job trading onto Nadal there, not quite level 6. And Gragas is one of those champions at the top lane. It's a great nullifier. Like, he does a lot of damage. He can sustain with his own passive, and he's feeling really, really good on the top side. He is down some CS, but definitely kind of doing his job and nullifying Nadal up there on the top side of the map. It does look like nothing's really happening so far on the map just yet. Trundle looks like he's pathing towards the bottom side of the map. Might look for a play, but he would be passing over a ward. As it does look like, Semnuski definitely doing a nice job chunking out Nadal here. About half HP.
Oh, he's going for the ultimate. The cast comes through. Oh, and the body bump. The outplay from Samanosuke. Now, Goat BM in the mid lane. He's going to get hit with that stun. Now the charm comes out. Going to keep him okay, but what an outplay up there on the top side.
Yeah, we would really like to see it there as well, because, while Gragas is kind of known as a nullifying top laner, he can still end up solo killing you if he does get the kind of that knockback into the tower there, getting that just the extra damage he needed. As Tempo's only level 5.
Oh, what a nice pillar. The flash has to come out. Perfect tempo. Luckily not getting rooted up by those chompers before he can get the flash out, but that's a flash down on the Lulu.
Yeah, it's a very big timer too, because bot lanes are about to take over to level 6 as well, and the Crystalline Arrow piled over the Encore is almost undodgeable, especially how big the hitbox is on Ashe's Arrow if you do not preemptively dodge that one away. But with the bot lane pressure that is going to result in the first dragon of the game being taken here by ShadowZ, using that early game leverage very, very well in this game, making solid plays. But at the same time, it definitely does look like a little bit of, the gold lead wise, it is still relatively even. So I think TA Distortion are doing a good job on their own individual parts, but I think that overall, like the scale of the game definitely feels like it's still in ShadowZ's control.
Yeah, that first blood gold helping out a little bit for TA Distortion, picking up that as well as the kill difference that they have right now. But obviously the farm advantages that we're seeing in these lanes, top, mid, and bot, are starting to amount here on the side of ShadowZ. Some more top lane trading going on here. Obviously the first dragon is going to be pretty important. I think that this Ocean Dragon for some extra regen is probably the best one in terms of laning power. And it looks like this objective is going to try to be traded. This is kind of the classic rotation that we've seen from TA Distortion, sending perfect tempo up towards this Rift Herald, dragging an objective of their own.
Yeah, it's have a really good timing too, because if you look at the map, the bot lane here for ShadowZ is completely off the map, so they recognize they had a pretty good ability just to be able to chase that one down, as Samnuski able to use the Phase Rush to run completely out of those Ethereum chains there from the Aatrox. It's a really good addition. I really like the rune choice here from Samnuski. He could have put something for a little bit more aggressive, maybe the Arcane Comet, but instead recognizing the fact that if he does end up getting comboed by Nadal, by the Aatrox, it can very much be detrimental to his basically his entire HP bar. But it does look like, level 6s are finally happening here for the bot side of the map. I think All for Love is extremely close to hitting level 6. Yeah, he's like a couple of minions away until he's actually able to get that timer. And that's going to be probably the next play is going to be on the bot side of the map. Zeha obviously has Cleanse, has Flash, but Tempo, only level 5, does not have Flash for about another 2 minutes or so. And it definitely does look like we saw Goat BM rotating towards the bottom side of the map, but instead going back up towards the mid. And Blender, recognizing that bot lane could be a point of contention here for the side, but a nice E there from, let's see, different. Recognizing Blender's here, they're going to want to push out the wave, but it might be too late. Goat BM's kind of already here.
seconds. Here comes the Enchanted Crystal Arrow. It's going to find its way onto the Lulu. The Encore's going on to Zeha, but he still has the cleanse. Perfect Tempo's going to be the target, trying to shield himself, trying to stay alive. They're going to trade it back to Seraphine. Goes down. The Super Mega Death Rocket will find its mark. Different. Has to flash into the Cataclysm. Now Blender has to flash away, but this Jinx is excited, and you cannot run from that. The second kill will go over to Goat BM, who's still on the chase. Zeha, looking worse for wear, is going to get himself out of there. Freebish on the top side is going to find a pretty good trade here. Samanusuke with the phase rush. Try to get away. Actually has to flash out of that Infernal Chains. So good trade on the top side, but let's take stock of that bot lane play. It was a 2-for-1 in the favor of ShadowZ.
Yeah, it was a bit ballsy there by Samanusuke to dash over the wall into a 2v1, basically. He does lose half his HP and his flash. But yeah, that bot lane fight definitely it was a really good call by TA Distortion. Like, hey, we might get fought here because of our, we don't have flash on Lulu, so you have to come down here and protect us. But instead, the 2-for-1 does kind of come back on them. I think it could have very easily been a 1-for-1, but instead, Blender using the Cataclysm aggressively forward into an Ashe that has flash. And once you go forward into Ashe, she is extremely hard to actually get away from in a lot of these cases. Bobby doing a nice job stunning onto different there, but with Seraphine next to him, you can always have that empowered W safety net to really keep people alive. But it does equal a 2-for-1. ShadowZ able to get a little bit of that gold lead back because, the CS and the lane prowess is still being there for ShadowZ.
No,
but Bobby, Blender's looking.
Has to be careful. Gets the ward down just in time to sidestep that flag and drag. Blender desperate looking for a play on the map now. Has a little bit of time left on the Rift Herald before that one's going to expire. Really wants to get on the map and knock some plates off, but hasn't been able to find an opportunity just yet.
Yeah, Dragon spawning in about 50 seconds. That's where you can see a lot the bot side here for ShadowZ walking into TA Distortion's jungle, placing the vision down, trying to see if they can take away a couple of camps before they get back down there. Because we saw a potential rotation up by Tempo and Blender, which does mean they end up losing out on some of their bot side here. But Blender actually fails to flag and drag over the wall. Not quite able to get it. Does do the emote here, recognizing, hey, I did a bit of a funny. But Blender might just go on him instead, chooses not to.
Dragon spawning in 20 seconds here. Mid laners looking for the push. Rift Herald is actually now going to get spawned up in the mid lane. Blender wanting to find some lane priority, but here comes the Enchanted Crystal Arrow from down, but oh no! The Encore's not going to find its mark. It doesn't matter. Goat BM finds the charm anyways. Furry Bush will assist in the kill. What a snipe there from LFT different, but it's going to continue in the mid lane. Samanusuke is here. Goat BM is going to eat the entirety of the Unleashed power, and the cask will find the kill. Dragon still on the map, 4 versus 4. Nodal going to the top side, has teleport available. We'll see if they want to contest for this.
Yeah, I'd be surprised if they do because they are without Goat BM, and Blender is spawning right about now, so he can very easily get back out onto the map and make this play potential, but instead, Samanusuke's actually the one pathing up towards the top side of the map, so this could end up being a potential contestation, or a point of contest here for ShadowZ, but a nice chunk of damage here on a Furry Bush might actually just completely push them out of the area. They might be okay with just getting a play onto Nodal here, up on the top side of the map. But yeah, I think that initial attempt there, that's the power of the Ashe that we really like to see, right? Arrow from downtown doing a lot of damage. As Tempo is a bit of danger, able to use Whimsy there to get away out of the trunk of the pillar. But it was actually, the Encore was ended up landing, but Goat BM used the Spirit Rush and dodged the Encore, actually. So wasn't quite able to layer it. But Ashe Arrow, again, off cooldown onto Blender, not able to follow up on it.
The Dragon does go over. The mid lane priority proves to be enough here for the side of TA Distortion to pick up their first Dragon of the game. And yeah, that Ashe Arrow, I mean, it's never bad to just throw it out and look for an engage, but they realize after they toss it that they can't quite close the gap in time. Didn't want to overchase and end up getting it turned around back on them. So we're going to have to wait another 60 seconds or so before we got that Enchanted Crystal Arrow back up.
Yeah, I mean, Ashe Arrow has always been one of those ultimate abilities that it's a very, very short cooldown, and if you are able to land it from a great distance, the CC that it brings is just so massive at basically any stage of the game unless you have some form of tenacity to come through. So that one will be back up at about 30 seconds time. You can honestly keep looking for those types of plays. Nodal's in a bit of danger here, but Blender is here.
Cask has to flash away from that one, but now the Cataclysm will come down, and he just gets absolutely exploded. Bush has the ultimate down, looking to kill Blender. He knows he has some backup on the way. Goat BM, Spirit rushing into the fight, but a nice flash to get away from the charm. The Flag and Drag as well. Blender has made his great escape, and it'll end up being a 1-for-0 all said and done.
Ooh, Blender almost face-checking into his death there because did not quite recognize that Different was peeping around the corner, but instead able to get away scot-free. And this might actually be very big for Zeha because he has been pushing on the bot side of the map for a while now, completely left alone. TP is going to come through to salvage that tower. Definitely don't want to give just free gold over to an enemy AD carry as Blender thought about looking for a play over the Herald, just wanted to toss that flag over the wall, maybe see the HP of it, but instead that is going to end up being the Herald picked up here by Bush, and a Bush play might happen here for the side of CA, but this is going to be kind of cornered. Here goes Blender.
He's going for it. All for Love has the flash available, patiently waiting that one out, realizing that there's not quite kill threat here. Nodal in the bot side might actually be able to get the first tower of the game. There's no way that Zeha can defend this push, so that is going to be the first tower going down. Nice infusion of gold here for the side of ShadowZ. Arrow will miss its mark. OPM wanting to follow it up. Gonna miss the Everfrost. Bobby sidestepping left and right, but the charm comes through. The encore over the top. They've got so much CC, and Bobby will go down. Needed to flash that charm if he had any hope of surviving that engage.
Yeah, and that's a big mistake there from Bobby, because like you said, you have to flash that charm there because there's no way you're going to be able to get out from the layering of CC that comes from an Ashe, a Seraphine, and an Ahri. All for Love, able to use the Cataclysm.
Solo man Cataclysm there onto the Seraphine. Gonna make All for Love see gray. Now LFT Different is on the run. Another Flag and Drag will be flashed away from Samanusuke. He wants some tussle here too, but can't quite close the gap. Ghost Flash Ashe is a little bit too quick.
Yeah, Ghost is actually a pretty unique summer spell, especially for a lot of AD carries. We saw a lot of them start using it because like you had champions like Zeri, you had champions like Sivir who just had constant movement speed, but Ashe is actually a really good Ghost user because you can slow people down while speeding yourself up.
Oh, no, Blender! That's the second time we've seen him mess up his combo. He's got no flash, he's just food for the Aatrox.
I mean, I don't really know what to say to that. I think that's just a...
He hit Q first. I don't know.
Yeah, that's just bad, right? And he knows it. Everyone in Twitch chat knows it. Like, I'm sure even a gold player could be like, "Hey, that's not how you play Jarvan." And yeah, that's
anyone can recognize that.
Yeah, exactly. So definitely a huge mistake there from Blender, and we've seen it a couple of times now. So maybe not feeling that confident in his Jarvan play could end up causing, some small problems, right? Kind of as not only this game, but this series goes on as well. I mean, he's done a good job recognizing like when to go forward with the Cataclysm to pick up opportunities for kills, but definitely has had some pretty small miscues here and there. But still, this game is relatively close, right? It is actually spiraling a little bit up towards a 2,000 gold lead for ShadowZ, but definitely nothing insurmountable. Ooh. Arrow almost hitting onto Bobby there. Bobby, man, this guy is like holding onto his flash for dear life. This guy's got some balls of steel.
He has had a couple enchanted crystal arrows just graze his backside. Calm, cool, and collected as always here from Bobby. But yeah, finally we're starting to see a gold lead being accrued here for the side of ShadowZ. And it's been one Rift Herald per team, one Dragon per team. We're getting the third Dragon of the game now spawning on the map in just 5 short seconds. And with the investment onto the top side here from ShadowZ, maybe they're just calling that they're going to go for the play in the top side. They still have 3 up here, and they're going to look for the objective trade on the towers.
Yeah, they might be able to get this tier 2 top tower as well. And I kind of like this play a little bit here from ShadowZ because you're focusing more on the inflection of gold instead of the current value that Dragons end up giving you at the moment as Nodal trying to fight this. He does have another dash coming up soon.
Yeah, needs to get over the wall there. The flag comes down on this side, so Blender won't be able to follow. So cheeky little steal attempt from the ShadowZ top laner. Not going to get it, but also doesn't really cost him anything.
Yeah, I mean, it was okay. Nodal recognized the fact that he would have the cooldown coming back up, able to dash back over the wall, wasn't completely in danger there, even though it looked very, very risky, per se, to a standard player, but Nodal able to recognize he had the cooldowns coming back up. But it does mean the second dragon of the game does go over to TA Distortion, but 3,000 gold lead now up here for ShadowZ, doing a nice job, just continuing to influx their gold, trying to hit their item spikes quicker than TA Distortion is able to, and it does mean that the Baron is active and on the map. So with their gold lead, they could start putting a little bit more of their power up towards the top side of the map. 4 members are already up here trying to gain a little bit of vision. All for Love not quite able to walk in just yet because Blender is protecting that area. But it definitely could be a place to actually start watching over, placing his control wards. Because if you look and see...
Blender's caught, Flash comes out, Flag and Drake. How did he dodge that arrow? But the charm will come in. The layered CC is going to come through. Wild Growth will buy a moment. Cataclysm has the emergency button, but that is not going to be a way out. That is only a way to certain death. Now bot side though, this could be potential trade. Unleash Power onto Nodal. He's got to be careful. There is no way out for this Aatrox. It's another cross-map play, but Ping's going down onto the Baron. ShadowZ, they might want this.
Yeah, they're definitely going to look over to it. Blender is dead for 20 seconds, so if they feel confident in doing, they could easily just take this one down, but they are double TPing into the mid lane. They call it off. They say, hey, we do not want to flip the game with 4 people fighting for a fight in the mid lane, but this does give the route to pick up the tier 1 mid tower in the play. So it's going to be a 1-for-1, but 2 towers picked up here for T Distortion with just the cost of double TPs from their solo lanes.
Yeah, I was about to talk about how maybe that double TP wasn't worth it. Those are 2 big cooldowns off the map, but with what they got out of that play, maybe makes it a little bit more worthwhile. They obviously stopped the Baron there from going over as well. So positive trade for TA Distortion, trying to fight their way back in this game number 1. I want to direct everyone's attention towards this Ahri right now, because for GOAT BM, I mean, having a fantastic game. Easily the gold leader by over 1,000 gold up on anyone else. Farming at over 10 CS per minute right now, and is sitting on Everfrost, Zhonya's, and a needlessly large rod. GOAT BM, so massively strong in this game. ShadowZ need to keep playing around that mid laner.
Yeah, I mean, GOAT BM and Difference have definitely been the reason why ShadowZ has had a lot of their success in this tournament. So it doesn't really surprise me he is putting up these kinds of numbers in this series already, just starting in game number 1 here. So definitely, yeah, like you said, definitely watch this guy to be the playmaker of his team. Even though, a lot of these fights have been starting from Ashe Arrows landing and the encore over the top from All for Love. Definitely gonna be able to watch Blender maybe make a play here.
Come on to All for Love. Flash is available, so is just gonna get himself on out of there. Actually, TP channeled into the mid lane. GOAT BM responding to that play immediately, looking to join his team now. 5 members from both teams right around this mid lane area.
Yeah, that is Cataclysm down, though. GOAT BM dashing forward, looking for a play. Does end up using his entirety of the Spirit Rush there. Not able to have any more charges. Open up, no flash.
Worth it. Yeah, okay, Encore coming through. The Gragas Barrel is actually not going to blow him back in, but the range from Zeha is going to get the kill. Now they're on the run. GOAT BM with the Everfrost trying to provide some safety for his team, but Samanusuke's got the flash. He's got the body bump. Flash will be returned, and now they re-engage from the other side, but the Unleashed Power, the Scatter the Weak will come through to dissuade it. One traded on either side. Nodal is coming into this fight. He's going very fast. He's got that ultimate ticking, and he wants to claim some lives. It's a double kill for Different. Perfect Tempo will be the next to fall, and now Bobby stands alone. Q2, Q3, one last auto, and they will find the wipe.
Yeah, and I like the attempt there onto All for Love there. They're able to get the pick off there because they just burned his flash from not having the Cataclysm. But they used a lot of their tools to just get the initial pick off there onto Different and All for Love. They had Cataclysm down, Gragas cast down, and they didn't really have anything else to follow up. They tried using Samanusuke's flash along with the body bump there from his E, able to try to land some CC, but no one else was able to actually get in range. And then with the slowdowns and the speed ups from Ashe and from Seraphine and Nodal, able to finally get into the team fight there with the Aatrox, landing multiple sweet spots in the team fight, able to pick up the victory there. And now all of a sudden we've got a 6,000 gold lead here from ShadowZ, mostly just from the one team fight while also picking up the Baron, as we are going to get a bit of a pause here before we take this dragon down.
Looks like someone's apartment is burning down, so hopefully there's no fire. No, I'm just kidding. They said someone's cooking some bad food. Smells like their apartment's burning down. They're gonna go check it out, but they'll be back momentarily, I'm sure. And we are getting a little bit of an objective trade here. TA Distortion getting back on the map, able to make their way into this dragon pit, trying to claim their third dragon of the game. Unfortunately for them, it is just Wind Soul, so not as impactful as they would like it to be, especially considering how far behind they are falling.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, obviously, you know, movement speed has always been a very, very crucial stat to have when it comes to basically any League of Legends game, but it's not like it's not a soul that's really going to bring you back into the game combat stat-wise that we see like some of the other souls bring. So yeah, I definitely kind of agree with you there. But I think for that team fight there, it just felt like, you know, maybe TA Distortion just like they got a little bit more than what they were expecting initially, right? Because they're like, okay, like we can get this pick on the offer love, and we can just kind of keep going forward because we have a numbers advantage. But you know, diving forward into Ash Seraphine. And really, like even the Trundle, like with everyone else there, like you have to make sure you have to really land and follow up the consistent damage because it's very, very hard to actually, you know, like especially the Ashe. Like, you have to keep that champion in place, or else she is just going to continuously kite you away, keep slowing you down, and keep landing all of those auto attack damage. So I think, you know, for the side of TA Distortion, they're going to be a little bit more in sync here if they're going to end up winning this game. You know, landing a little bit more of these abilities in conjunction with each other. And they might be able to start winning out these team fights, or else ShadowZ definitely looking to take over this game. Bobby is down here for Nadal.
Looking for Nodal. Here goes Samanusuke into the fray as well, but the World Ender is wreaking havoc. Bobby has to flash away. Already used his ultimate. Oh no, he whiffs on the Unleashed Power, but Samanusuke trying to keep his mid laner alive. Blender is here just in time. They will get the shutdown, but at what cost? ShadowZ, they're in the base. They're pushing for inhibitors. They've got a Baron buff. They're going to break open the base of TA Distortion. I don't think they can push for much more here, but maybe they think differently. No.
Well, they did kill Zeha
Blender.
somehow.
It's a big two-man knockup. Cataclysm onto 3, but he just doesn't have the backup here. They're just shredding him. The Ashe damage not quite going to be enough to find the kill there, but Blender burning his flash for basically nothing.
Yeah, that's definitely a very, very big thing there for Blender. And we talked about Blender going into this game being like, you know, he has to get things done early. He has to be very proactive. And he really just didn't really get all that much done in this game. And I think it was to the credit of ShadowZ. They did a nice job recognizing plays that he could make. Fairy Bush was constantly all over him, making sure he really couldn't breathe in the early stages of the game, and he's kind of paid for it as well. He is certainly starting to fall off of a cliff. You can see, like, anytime, even if he does use his Cataclysm aggressively there, doesn't really have anything to really work for, as Different does fire the arrow onto Zeha, does end up missing, so it could be a potential window here, but the arrow is down, so they are going to end up backing away, even though they have the Baron buff up and available. Samanusuke is back on the Rift, and is a 5 versus 4 Nadal. Still on the top side of the map, so resets coming through here for the side of ShadowZ. Gonna look to get back out on the map.
Look at these carries from ShadowZ. 3 items completed now. That's a book for Goat BM, by the way. He's got 9 stacks already in his book. Has been just dominating this game, and Different has quietly been picking up a bunch of kills. 5-0 and 3 now. Phantom Dancer on top of his Blade of the Ruined King. He is just absolutely ready to start shredding through Samanusuke and Blender's health bars here. What is the play from Team Distortion? Do they just need a miracle engage onto the backline when there's no flashes? Is that what it has to be?
Yeah, I mean, I think there can be a couple of things, right? Like where you have a very potent tool in the cask from Gragas on his ultimate, where you can actually split apart the team here for ShadowZ, to where you can buy enough time to pick somebody out. GoBM has flash and ulti.
Oh, he does have ulti. He's going to get away from everything. The CC there from TA Distortion really not coming down at the right time, allowing him to dodge all of their engage with just one R key press. And they do burn the ultimate, but it was in trade for some resources on the other side. Baron buff has now worn off, but that's not going to stop them from sieging up the base here, looking to take down the second inhibitor tower, and they will make quick work of it. Let's see if they can get any more here.
Yeah, still looking, still posturing. Blender without Cataclysm is going to be a very hard time to even want to get in. He does have Stopwatch now, so he can just kind of go in and buy time with the stopwatch to come through. But yes, I think Samanusi's going to have to have a very crucial explosive cast if they even want to think about winning this fight. He's posturing forward. Here it is.
That's going to be the cast, but it doesn't really bowl them back in. It's only a 2-man knockup from Blender. Now he's going to go into the zone. He's buying some time. No in front line. He's healing for so much, and the Encore is going to turn it around. Blender's in the front, but he has not long to live. They are going to keep looking for more. Goat BM's got the resets. It's a triple kill for LFT Different, and Samanusuke is the last TA Distortion member alive. The base will be the target. Goat BM is going to play with his food a little bit here. He actually might end up dying. The pages in his book are at risk, but he's got the flash. He's got the Everfrost. He's like, end the game. My KDA is at stake. The Nexus will be the target, and ShadowZ will find the game 1 victory.
Wow, the arrow from downtown from Different, much like basically this entire game, setting up play after play, keeping his mid laner alive, like you said, saving those Magi stacks. Even if he lost them, wouldn't have mattered anyways. Nexus was already dying in the process. But yeah, I think huge job here from ShadowZ.
Mentally, Orion.
Yeah, I can agree with that for sure. I think huge job ShadowZ denying Blender from really ever getting anything going early game in the bot lane. And I think Different and All for Love had some massive plays in this game, mostly Different. I think he had some very huge crystalline arrows. The Encore was just kind of a little bit extra on top that they needed in a lot of these team fights to come, especially that last one there towards the end. And we can kind of see why Seraphine has been basically perma'd so far against All for Love. Definitely, even though he is basically an enchanter type of player, there are a lot of enchanters out there. So maybe if you do have to ban the Soraka and the Yuumi away from All for Love, maybe you have to start changing up this kind of scheme a little bit here, depending on if they want to focus a little bit more else.
Really didn't work here in game number 1 as we get a look at that last fight that put the finishing touches on the TA Distortion base. But we said that this game would come down to team fighting. It really didn't. It came down to the fact that ShadowZ had 3 winning lanes. They were dominating in top, in mid, and in bot. And all Furry Bush had to do was make sure that the Jarvan didn't get ganks. And he had Blender's number throughout that entire early game. Didn't let him influence any of those lanes significantly. And from there, it felt pretty easy from them. They made the correct macro decisions, trading objectives here and there when they needed to. And once they had a gold league, they just really never looked back.
Yeah, and I think it's pretty interesting for the side of TA Distortion. They put a lot of emphasis right on this Jinx pick for Zeha, and they got they third rotated the Lulu out here, so they wanted the scaling late game team fight oriented AD carry, but Zeha just never really got going. It was so hard for him to even hit in any of these team fights because he has to worry about the Ash Arrow, he has to worry about the Seraphine Encore, Ari dashing on top of him. He just could not really ever stay in place to team fight. And even if he could, if he had cleanse on cooldown, if he ever got CC'd, basically was going to end up dying almost certainly in a lot of these team fights. So they might have to go a little bit of a different route. Like I know TA has played some Senna Seraphine bot lanes of their own. So maybe they want to go maybe a little bit more for that type of style, just so they can kind of take it away from ShadowZ going into game 2 potentially.
Ban the Soraka, ban the Yuumi, pick the Seraphine, and say, no enchanters for you, Mr. All for Love. You have to play some budget enchanter like Karma or something. Yeah, we'll see what they want to do. We're going to take a short break before we do get into that game number 2. So we'll see you when we come back. We are back, everyone, to the CCS Fall Invitational Grand Finals, where ShadowZ have taken a 1-0 lead. Team Ambition Distortion opting to go back onto the red side for game number 2. Orion, do you think they're maybe going to switch up their draft strategy here?
Yeah, I mean, I'd be surprised if they didn't, especially like because like we said, they wanted to go a very early rotation with the Jinx, and they didn't really pick a strong lane for it in terms of like they
Hmm.
kind of just got outranged, and they also like couldn't really hit in a lot of those team fights because they had the Ashe and the Seraphine. So I'm curious to see kind of like what the route is going to end up being. They've already banned away the Yumi. ShadowZ definitely kind of keeping Semanuski off of his champions, where he can't just dominate the top side of the map. And for TA, they might just go 3 straight enchanters
Yeah, are
here.
they going to ban Seraphine too? Okay,
Instead,
nope.
no, they're gonna ban the Volibear. So I'd be very surprised. Yep, the ShadowZ, they're just gonna end up picking it again. So I'm curious to how TA feels, like how that last game went, right? 'Cause I think Sam did a really good job on the Gragas last game. I think
Yeah.
a lot of his engages were good. And I think he ended up, poking out very, very well in a lot of those stages, finding some engages to come through. So they might end up going with the Gragas once again. But yeah, same bans across the board. Seraphine was locked in for that B1 option. TA hovering over a couple different AD carries here, maybe wanting to do their own utility type of AD carry here as well,
Hmm.
picking up the Jhin, something that could be a little bit easier to use if they end up piloting that Ashe once again on the bot side of the map here for different.
I don't know if Jhin has been played at all this tournament. This might be the first Jhin. Let's see here.
Ooh, it's a very early
Ooh,
Xerath.
Wrath. Okay. Likely that'll be going into the hands of Bobby in the mid lane, but could be a flex pick. ShadowZ, it's just a salty run back from them, and take away the salt because they won game 1, and they're just going to say, all right, what you got?
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely it's up to TA to change, right? Because I mean, when you do this type of composition and especially kind of the way game 1 went, it definitely could feel very, very solid as a way of composition. They're hovering over a couple of different champions. I would imagine it's going to end up being the Ashe here for different, just because it
Hmm.
kind of fits his style just a little bit more than the other 2 champions that they ended up hovering there, and that is going to be the case. Ashe was selected, and
Mhm.
yeah, Bobby playing the Xerath, very early lock in here for the champion. And typically when it comes to Xerath, right, like his range is so annoying to deal with. But ShadowZ have already locked in 2 options that can get onto him with the Crystalline
Yep.
Arrow and the Encore on the top from ShadowZ. So it's definitely not going to be the easiest game for Xerath. Typically, like he's really good into short mid-range champions. He can just perma outrange them. It's actually one of the reasons why he's picked into a champion like Azir. Instead, Sejuani gonna end up being the pick here. Most likely, I would imagine, for Sam Manuski up there on the top side of the map.
Mhm.
Have to wait and see how these bands end up going though.
Samanusuke felt like the player from TA Distortion that actually was doing things in that game, right? He had that really nice cask early on where he got the outplay against Nodal. He was kind of making things happen with the body slam on the Gragas, but there just wasn't really ever enough to follow it up. There wasn't enough behind it. So on the Sejuani, still on, kind of a frontline engaged tank. We'll see what he can get done. I did confirm, by the way, this is the first Jhin of the tournament. So exciting to see that one come out. It could potentially be paired with the Xerath in the bot lane. And now with this Sylas coming in, there's flex picks all over here for TA.
Wait, like you mean the entire tournament?
The entire tournament.
Holy crap!
Yeah,
Wow,
first Jhin.
one game. Wow. I mean,
Yeah.
to be fair, Jin is not the most popular AD carry in the current meta. He doesn't really deal well with bruisers or tanks. He
Hmm.
doesn't chew through them like most AD carries do, which is why we haven't seen a lot of him. But instead, ShadowZ gonna go with a bit more of a. Oh, actually, I'm gonna wait so they actually end up blocking in. If they go for that Vi or even the Nocturne, it could be a way of just like perma getting on top of people with their long range ultimate abilities.
Hmm.
But instead, it is gonna end up being the Vi. The Assault and Battery is still a very, very powerful ability. I believe, along with Cease and Desist, I think is that the ultimate?
Assault
Or
and
is
Battery is the ultimate.
Okay. So there's something along there for Vi, cease and assist. That's another ability as well. I think it might be her Q. I'm not exactly sure exactly what
Might
it's
be her
called.
W, actually. I'm not sure.
Yeah, but instead, yeah, a lot of very interesting picks here for TA. Like we said, it's like Silas being locked in on 4, Rammus being hovered. Which, if you look at the side, if you look at the cross side for ShadowZ, they do have 3 AD champions, and Rammus was changed to be.
Mhm.
He does not have the movement speed slow anymore on the W, but instead it is just going to end up being the Skarner. So yeah, it is going to be gonna match poke with poke here a little bit on the bot side of the map for TA, going with the Jin Xerath
Yeah.
on the bot side of the map. But still, that lane is very susceptible, right? Like if Vi goes down there, anytime
Mhm.
any of those champions are level 6, you just press R on him, and if he doesn't have flash, I can guarantee you Xerath is dying.
Yeah, definitely scary to have a Vi coming down, especially post 6 when you're one of these immobile carries like the Xerath, like the Jin, things like that. This is kind of a different look than we've seen out of TA Distortion, right? Bobby on a melee champion, not something that we've typically seen that much. Skarner, not a champion that we've seen that much. And Sejuani top, of course, makes sense for Samanusuke up there, but definitely pulling out something new. And I must say, the purple-blue color scheme here, I'm liking what I'm seeing.
Yeah, I mean, obviously Jin is like, the white, grayish type thing that he's got going on up there. But yeah, I think, for both these teams, it's base ShadowZ is basically running back a very, very similar composition what they had in game number 1. Obviously a different top side of the map besides the Aatrox.
Mhm.
But still very, very, ultimate oriented champions. You see somebody caught out of position, you fire the crystalline arrow,
Yep.
and you just layer all that CC together. And really, I mean, when it comes to TA's composition, obviously, hop using those ultimates onto a Skarner, and even like I said, Sejuani, probably not the most ideal thing in the world. But anytime you're able to pick out the Silas, and especially
Mhm.
the boss side of the map here for Stay Head Tempo, gonna have to have
Yeah.
a very, very solid game in game number 2 if they're gonna want to dodge out on these abilities coming through. Because last game it was very hard for Zayhead to hit just because of all of the abilities coming at him. Gonna be a very similar game, but he does at least have access to the curtain call in
Yep.
this game where he can stand very, very far back. He can have his tanks go in first and just kind of laser them with those empowered bullets from the ultimates.
Absolutely. And they should have the push, the range advantage in this lane, which is something different than what we saw, obviously, in game number 1. The one issue is there's a Vi on the enemy team, so they are going to have to be a little bit careful. Their jungler in the Skarner isn't one that likes to necessarily get involved super early on. Does have some skirmishing power, but really wants to get towards that level 6 before trying to influence lanes too heavily. So
Mm.
they will have to be aware that the Vi is going to want to come to that bot side and take advantage of their immobility down there. So I'm interested to see what their game plan is, whether they're going to have Skarner protecting, if they're just going to push the first 2 waves and look for a bounce, or what it's going to look like, because I definitely see some vulnerability down there.
Yeah, and I'm really, I'm looking at TA's composition here, and I'm definitely seeing a little bit of lack of damage per se when it comes to like
Mm,
potentially chewing through a lot of these higher HP bars, especially like champions with Aatrox,
yep.
where you have a empowered healing coming through from the Seraphine. So if TA Distortion is able to get ahead early, I can definitely see them like still being fine in the damage category. But if this game is even, and this game kind of just goes like very similar to how game number 1 went, I can
Mhm.
definitely see ShadowZ just continuing to kind of take control of the early game, pick up some kills as the game kind of goes on, and then all of a sudden their game just becomes so much easier to play. And TA, I don't want to say TA is like a ticking time bomb, but it kind of feels like at least a little bit towards the back end of this game, they're going to have a hard time actually finishing off some of these carries with their
Mhm.
little bit of lacks of damage.
Definitely indexing more towards lane prowess and lane dominance than we saw them do in the previous game. We'll see if that works out for them, or if ShadowZ are just going to take them to 2-0. We got a couple minutes here before we load onto the Rift, but teams are ready to go. And again, we will meet you there. Game number 2 is locked and loaded. Looks like we're going to get a pretty standard 5-point once again from both these teams. But TA Distortion switching things up here for this game. The first Jhin we've seen in this tournament. I believe the third Skarner. Not picks that we've seen super commonly at this level of play, but they're looking to throw a wrench into the ShadowZ plans here in game number 2.
Yeah, and I think for the early stages of the game, I think this Jhin Seraph is definitely going to have a much better time compared to what we saw last game, right? Because we saw Jinx Lulu, two champions that don't necessarily operate that well in laning phase, especially when they're being outranged by the Ashe and the Seraphine. But instead, it is going to be a little bit when it comes to the early stages, right? Because you have you have Jhin poke, you have Seraph poke constantly hitting on top of you, landing that damage to come. But it does become very, very dicey the second the junglers and the bot lanes hit level 6. Even though Zayha does have options to his cleanse, it's not always going to be that much helpful when you do get ulted by. And to be fair, Lindor, the ultimate is called cease and desist. Just saying.
No way. Wow. All right. I'll take the L on that one, I guess. Good job. I swear it used to be called Assault and Battery. Did they change that?
That's probably the Q.
Let's see. No, it's Vault Breaker. I don't know.
Never mind.
I think they changed it. I think I'm getting trolled by Riot Games here.
It's okay.
Anyway, jungle started on opposite sides of the map. We'll see if Blender wants to just go for a standard 6 camp clear, get as much XP under his belt as he can. Meanwhile, not surprised at all to see Furrybush making his way towards this bot side of the map early on.
Yeah, and I think, for Blender, definitely going to want to play more for his top side because you actually have some kill threat a little bit on both top and mid. Stemanowski opting into taking the Ignite does mean he wants to have that little bit extra kill pressure. And the healing reduction does feel very nice. That Hawkshot is going to basically tell the entirety of ShadowZ that, hey, Skarner is going to be on the top side of the map, and GoatBM also able to place the ward over the Raptor camp signals, obviously, that he is going to be doing it. Almost a full clear, or at least to be expecting the Skarner to be on the top side for about the next minute or so. Stemanowski not super confident on where this Vi is, so wanting to get this wave pushed out. But there is a ward being placed on the river side here for the bot line here of Zayha and Perfect Tempo. But one of the small things, or one of the problems that you can have when it comes to a pushing lane is if you do push your lane too hard into the enemy team's jungler that's pathing towards you, it can put you in a bit of a vulnerable position, but there is already a ward here.
Furrybush is here, well spotted out, but going for the flash Q. Follow-up CC from All for Love, not going to be in time, and now the Deadly Flourish. Going to trade it on back. Furrybush getting told to stay away. Top side, Blender wanted to get involved here. Nodal going to get stunned up there. I don't think they really have a way to follow this up unless Nodal wants to go forward. Ignite is down. Is the Q ready for Stemanowski? Not quite. Not going to be able to get to First Blood.
Yeah, gonna want to crash this wave. I think Nadal is gonna end up TPing back. He should be okay. Stemanowski opted into using the Ignite there, so definitely probably not going to have enough to kill him on the TP if they are just backing away. But honestly, for that bot lane play, Furrybush and All for Love, a bit desynced there on the play. I don't necessarily know if All for Love wasn't expecting the flash to come through, but yeah, Furrybush flashing forward, and then maybe a second after All for Love ended up using his flash to try to pick up the kill there onto Perfect Tempo. If it was a little bit more in sync, I can see a world where they kill him.
Bobby, that was not the time to go forward. Now he's going to be in some trouble. Furrybush is going to get the flash out of the enemy mid laner, and now the Sylas isn't going to have that get out of jail free card.
Yeah, and his wave's already in a pretty awkward position. GoatBM trying to thin it just a little bit here, trying to keep it as best he can here. And Bobby does have to walk very aggressively up forward here. He is going to be able to end up crashing this wave. GoatBM going to try to hold it, but just not able to completely hold that one all the way through. He is going to get a couple of those caster minions. So it is going to be a successful hold here. And for Bobby, he's already actually used the TP here in this mid lane, so not quite able to really, even get a successful base off here. Already down plus 20 CS.
GoatBM still trying to do his best to zone him. Is a little bit low on mana. So not able to go for too many aggressive trades here, but yeah, definitely getting the better of this mid lane matchup. In the ranged versus melee here, Blender and Perfect Tempo are on their way, trying to break this freeze, but GoatBM, he's still got it, and he's got some friends in his back pocket as well. Bobby looking very, very low. Here he goes. Bobby is going to go down. GoatBM is exhausted, but he says, I already got the kill. I don't even care. Blender's here now too, but it's a 3 versus 2, and ShadowZ again will come away with that fight. It is first blood onto this Orianna.
Yeah, and that's just communication from both sides saying, hey, like, I had to get this wave pushed out. And it's also GoatBM saying, hey, he has to get this wave pushed out. If you come here, we can kill this guy very easily. It's Different and Zeha. Nice little side set there from Different. Able to get a lot of damage here.
Wow, ton of damage. Oh, he did flashes! He's gonna get it turned around, but he does get the 1-for-1 kill. Perfect Tempo. Not in time to assist on that one, but Samanusuke, he's got the Ignite down. Is that gonna be enough?
I don't think so.
Nodal wants to try and get some heals. He's got a health pot ticking. Barely stays alive, but will get pushed off the majority of this wave. Trying to pick up what experience he can is actually going to be allowed to come back and pick up some CS. That was like single-digit HP.
Yeah, definitely it feels bad there for Sam up on the top side of the map. Once again, using that Ignite basically on cooldown here at this point, trying to get as much of that lane presence as he possibly can. But Nadal actually pushing up in this way. He does have Flash.
So patient from Samanusuke, but yeah, Flash and the World Ender coming down for Nodal. He's going to make himself be okay here. But mid lane now, Blender is in. He has the ultimate available. That's going to be it. But wait, okay, now it comes through. Going to pull GoatBM in. No Flash on this Orianna. Means that Bobby gets his revenge.
Yeah, it's actually really well played there from Bobby. Actually dashing forward, taking the Orianna Shockwave, using it on herself to pull her closer to Bobby in that instance, and was able to actually end up allowing the Skarner to catch up and actually land his ultimate ability as well. And it does look like, as we are getting a little bit later in this game, so far, like, mostly just been a lot of the lanes actually happening here. A lot of the focus has been around these mid laners because just the overall, like, the laning has been going on. But I can definitely see a lot of this attention start going a little bit more towards the bottom side of the map because Dragon's still up and active on the map. Bot laners are getting closer and closer to hitting level 6, and that's where we can start seeing a lot of the action happening here, at least I would expect. Obviously, Herald is spawning in about 10 seconds or so. Neither team rotating up for that objective.
Yeah, usually we get that 8-minute rotation, but right now these bot laners very focused on that 2v2. And for this bot lane of Zeha and Perfect Tempo, we thought that they would have the advantage in this lane with the range from the Xerath, the poke from the Jhin as well, but it's 55 to 42 CS, almost 2-wave advantage for LFT Different and All for Love, piloting this lane exceptionally well.
Yeah, I mean, Seraphine and Ashe still have a decent amount of poke of their own. It's just that the range differences that they're quite massive. But definitely, I think obviously that kill that both of the AD carries ended up picking up could end up costing Zeha some CS. But yeah, Dragon is being started up. Actually, here goes
Enchanted Crystal Arrow. Blender's going to be the target. The Shockwave, the ultimate. I almost said Assault and Battery, but it's Cease and Desist. The steal as well. Furry Bush. Are you kidding me? Blender's on the run. He flashed over the wall, running for the hills. May look for an execute here. May look to get himself out. Is going on the Tour de Rift. Has a sliver of HP, but he's getting chased down. GoatBM is on the run. Or on the chase.
Actually, he's just going to get the recall off, too. I think, for a second there, GoatBM was walking to cut him off, but instead is able to sneak away to the bottom side, not quite able to be seen there by that tier 3 tower, and able just to pick up the recall there. So it's a smart little getaway there from Blender, but yeah, Furry Bush able to secure the Dragon with the help of his teammates, obviously. Glacial Prison coming down.
Trade of ults in the top side. Ignite actually as well coming out from Sam, but Nodal's got a pretty good job of absorbing the pressure out of this Sejuani. He has a nice CS lead to himself. See the junglers meeting up in the river here. Blender does have that ultimate available. We're going to pull him back into Bobby. Stolen Vi ultimate. Furry Bush, I don't think there's any way out for you. Cease and desist. And Bobby finds his second kill of the game.
Yeah, and once again, Blender using the impale there from the Skarner, actually able to just drag very, very closely to Bobby. And there's just no real way of escaping that type of opportunity. I mean, even though Flash was used there from Furry Bush, it still ultimately just did not matter in that instance. And All for Love trying to make a slow play onto perfect tempo here, basically leaving the 80 carries on the island towards the bot side of the map. But it is going to end up being the Herald secured here by the side of TA Distortion, using a couple of their early game picks here with the Impale and the power of the Silas in the early game, able to get a couple of kills going despite the CS difference from Bobby and GoatBM.
Ashero, it found Bobby. GoatBM has his ult as well. Encore, Vi ult, everything, and the kitchen sink. And they will find the shutdown. Furrybush will walk away with 450 gold, but topside, Samanusuke, he's in trouble, and he is not on the right side of this lane at all. Trying to find a way out, trying to battle what he can, but Nodal will pick that one up in the top side.
Yeah, Nodal finally getting the advantage at the top side of the map. Samanusuke has just been wailing on him over and over and over again, but the Aatrox, the cooldown lowering from those levels that he's able to obtain, and just the overall damage as he gets as those levels do come through, obviously feels very, very nice for him. Skarner's looking up on the top side of the map. Samanusuke is spawning and looking for a TP play. Actually, Bobby looking for a play as well.
Just looking to stop the port there of GoatBM. Blender actually thinks he can win this one. The Impale comes down. Nodal has ultimate shortly here, but I don't even know if he needs it. Just going to try and walk himself away. Will do exactly that. And bot lane, a little bit of trading back and forth, but still not too much happening here in the bot side.
Yeah, I think I want to talk a little bit about that Ashe arrow that we saw on our screen right from different, because that was an Ashe arrow from the bottom lane as the Herald is spawning up here. It's not going to quite get the entirety of the tower. It's going to probably put it to about 200 HP. Yep, so they're going to try to stay for it, but Nodal does a lot of damage here.
He also has his ultimate, and he knows that Blender doesn't have Impale, so that has to be the Glacial Prison coming out for the disengage from Samanusuke. Another ultimate trade up here in the top side, but slowly but surely this Aatrox is getting the better of this matchup.
Yeah, and with tempo actually resetting here, Zeha cannot walk up to this wave. He recognizes it. Even he does have cleanse, so different could shoot the arrow just to burn the cleanse away from him.
Yeah,
but instead he is just backing off completely here.
Okay, potential cross map play. Samanusuke going forward, wanting Blender to come and try to take out Nodal. No ultimate on this Aatrox. Ignite is now going to come down. He's trying to run himself away. Doesn't feel like he can turn this one back around, but now maybe has an opportunity. He flashes the Q3, the auto! He's found the 2v1 kill. And now Blender on the run. Has Bobby in his back pocket. Going to get pulled back in with the Infernal Chains. Is this going to be enough? Bobby has the damage. Yes, he does. Meanwhile, bot side, somehow this dive got dissuaded, but Furrybush, he's back for more! Assault and Battery, that's not what it's called, but everything comes through. And when you hit these 3 ultimates, someone surely dies.
Yeah, especially this early into the game. You just don't have enough base HP to survive as Bobby trying to go for GoatBM there. Nice shockwave burning the flash away, as it does look like Curtain Call, I think it's most likely just going to be used to try to clear out a little bit of the wave there. Both Different and All for Love are basically full HP in the bot side of the map. So Zeha using that Curtain Call to try to do a little bit of the cooldown. But yeah, Different and All for Love are having a really good series so far, and especially on these Ashe arrows. Different has been nailing these things on repeat too. And honestly, it's kind of reminded me a little bit of, it was a long time ago, Rift Rivals, when Doublelift was playing Ashe almost every single game, just perma throwing those arrows across the map. As Samanusuke is looking.
Has the ultimate. Nice cleanse out of Different. Will get him out of that Deadly Flourish and then the rest of the follow-up damage, so that'll keep him safe. But with the Sejuani roaming to this bot side, this dragon should be pretty easy to get picked up. No TP available for Nodal, and so it is going to be this Mountain Dragon going over. 1 dragon apiece between these teams, 14 minutes in.
Yeah, and I don't think, for the side of ShadowZ, they probably don't feel that bad that they're losing this dragon. Very similar to last game. They're going to keep their top lane on top side of the map, keep trying to get as much gold as they possibly can, and then take these fights as the game, progresses and continues. GoatBM, it didn't get the ward down. He does not have Shockwave available. Ashero split the uprights there in the river, not quite landing this time around. But still, I like the attempt from Different, because these cooldowns are relatively low on the Ashe arrow. You can just constantly look for these types of plays, and there's not really any repercussion for not looking for them.
Yeah, 80-second cooldown currently on that Ashe arrow. Of course, once he gets level 11, it'll be a minute or so. So yeah, really can just fish for those ultimates, fish for those picks, and when they go wide, doesn't really cost you anything on the other side. But let's take a look at this gold graph. It is just slightly in the favor of ShadowZ currently, but LFT Different, oh, he doesn't want to be here. Blender's on the chase.
Yeah, He has flash, but I don't think he flashed this.
Stun up, deadly flourish. He's rooted in place. They don't even need the Skarner ult. Blender will get the kill with his Sunfire Aegis there. A little bit unfortunate not to give that gold over to the Jhin, but still, it is going to be a kill in the pockets.
Yeah, I do get the kill. Most likely also going to result in the bot tower as well. But if you look at the map movement here from ShadowZ, they're putting a lot of their focus on the top side of the map, recognizing, hey, this is where we can be strong. They own the bot side. We can own the top side of the map, taking away some camps, taking away all of that pressure. Blender is looking.
Furry Bush just going to go for it. Cease and desist. Shockwave as well. Blender has a stopwatch. Going to break that one for now. The stolen Seraphine ultimate might be enough, but the snipe from downtown different unleashes the arrow from base and finds his mark. The tower does fall in the bot side, but you're absolutely right. This cross-map trading, very, very good from ShadowZ.
Yeah, I mean, it's basically the only really play they have. They recognized they would not be able to get to the bottom side of the map in time to really stop the play that TA Distortion was making on their end. So they said, hey, if you're going to send 3 members bot, we're just going to control the top side of the map, get an equal amount, if not more gold than what you got from killing Different. And Different still able to pick up the kill, even though he was all the way from base with the Enchanted Crystal Arrow firing that one. Definitely cosplaying the American Sniper just in this series alone in Game 1 and Game number 2. Top tower most likely going to end up falling here to Nadal and All for Love here. So it is going to be just the overall trade of towers, but still gold lead difference here, already ballooning to a 2,000 gold lead.
Really came out of nowhere there. A couple cross-map plays, a couple of towers falling, and ShadowZ right back in the driver's seat, at least in terms of the gold lead. It's them winning every lane again. Their laners are just better here. The Aatrox is up 40 or so CS, but there's a play in the bot side to potentially be had. Goat BM. Oh, what a beautiful sidestep. The Shockwave too, but the Impale! It drags him back. I don't even know how that connected. He was just barely in range. Little bit unlucky from Goat BM as he falls.
Yeah, so many close margins there that would have kept Goat BM alive there. If the Shockwave was a half a second sooner, the Impale would have never happened. And Semanuski had to opt into using the Ignite just last second to even pick up the kill onto Goat BM there. Almost had just enough movement to end up dodging away from that type of play. That would have been an amazing sight to see from Goat BM. Unfortunately, the kill does still end up happening, but for TA Distortion, they don't really get anything out of the play. They weren't able to push into the tier 2 on the bot side. They had to get a bit of a reset because of how long it took Goat BM to just die in the process. So typically, like, when you see these types of plays happen, you have like a little period, like a power play period where you had that number advantage, but still not really able to get anything just besides just pick up the kill of the Goat BM.
It's just the one kill going over, and the gold lead does still belong to ShadowZ by 1,000 or so gold. And Orion, we do have this dragon spawning in about 30 or so seconds. I have a feeling both of the teams are going to have their eyes on that one. Is it going to be ShadowZ looking for a pick here to start off this fight? What do you think they want to go for?
Yeah, I definitely think, a pick would be very, very nice for them. Basically, everyone has Flash but Blender and Semanuski, because obviously he took the Ignite on the top side of the map. So if they were able to land those ultimate abilities of layering, it could be a nice play. Blender almost face-checking in the Blitz does a nice job checking that one with the Sweeper and his E. Doesn't want to face-check directly into that play. But it does look like, basically everyone rotating down here. Bobby does have Flash.
Cease and desist coming through. The Shockwave as well, pulling him back in. There's a TP being channeled, but he's just got nowhere to go. The E, the Flash, it's not enough space. The Sejuani is not in time, and now Blender's been found out in the river. Phase Rush is going to help him scuttle on out of there, but the Dragon has been started, and the pick that we were talking about has already found its mark. A couple of ultimates were used. Maybe there's a way back into this fight, but with the Jhin pushing the mid lane, with them being a bit split here, they have to be careful. Perfect tempo, he's going to be the target, the Ashe ultimate, the Encore, everything coming through, and that's going to be another one in the bank for ShadowZ. Nodal zoning Blender out of the fight as they pick up their second dragon of the game.
Yeah, I'm not quite sure what some of the individuals of TA Distortion are doing in this last couple of instances, because we saw Bobby, the play happened onto him. He burned both the cease and desist and Shockwave, and he was going to be okay, but he just didn't flash the Shockwave for some reason. And then when he was 20 HP, he's decided to flash at that point and still ended up dying for it. So definitely a huge mistake from Bobby. But then when you're down a member for a dragon fight, you just have to back off. But Blender might be looking for a play here for a push and to use this the Vault Breaker to dash away. Blender flashing forward.
For it, he's got the R. It's down onto Different, and they're gonna get the shutdown. The curtain call claims that one. No, it actually doesn't. It was just the auto. Now it's gonna be the stolen ultimate, but a nice flash from Ultra Left, keeping himself alive. Shockwave lands onto 4, and here goes Nodal forward. The smite will finish off the Jhin. Blender will come out of the Zonias, actually, to find his screen going gray, and what looked like a potential comeback fight for the side of TA Distortion gets flipped right back on its head.
Yeah, exactly. And I think, you know, for ShadowZ there, like, they recognize the fact that, hey, just because they killed Different, they used a lot of their tools to sort of pick us off, and they don't really have all that much damage in the toolkit. Nadal buying time with the World Ender, all the healing he has. Ash Arrow not quite able to land there onto perfect tempo, but still a nice job. And then a massive shockwave from Goat BM, landing, I believe, onto 3 members there, able to get the extra sweet spots from Nadal just to pick up the team fight victory. And this game's starting to spiral out of control here. And we talked about, right, the fact that TA Distortion, they already have a composition that lacks in damage for just across the board. They do not have that much damage when dealing with the Aatrox, dealing with the Seraphine. Very, very just beefy champions in general. And now you're starting to get down in gold. You're starting to fall behind in items. This game can starting to feel like a ShadowZ salutes.
This game and this series feeling like it's slipping out of their grasp. They're going to make kind of a desperation play here onto Goat BM, but he still has Flash. They still have so many members. Encore, Shockwave looking for the kills. The Vi ultimate as well onto Bobby. Stolen Shockwave will mean nothing. And they look for the play, but again, ShadowZ are ready for the response. And Baron's on the map. They're going to look for the chase down. If they don't get any extra kills here, they will surely turn onto the Baron.
Yeah, definitely going to look that way here because Jungler's been dead for 20 seconds now. Respawn timer is definitely not going to be able to get back out onto the map. And Blender and Bobby feeling a bit desperate here in that play. They thought they had a pick-out play, but like you said, Flash from Goat BM, Flash to keep everybody alive from any real danger. And once you commit over the wall, there's no way you're going to end up escaping from an Encore, from a Shockwave, all the chain CC in the world. And I believe Bobby, he grabbed the Shockwave and was chain CC'd for like 4 or 5 seconds. And then he realized, hey, I never actually casted Shockwave, so might as well use it.
Yeah, it feels desperate just because they didn't have any vision in that area, right? They just kind of saw the opportunity to go onto Goat BM and said, okay, we got to go for it. And unfortunately, the reinforcements were there. The Flash was available. And that means it's Baron buff on the members of ShadowZ. It is now a 6,000 gold lead.
Oh, and Different
does have to be a bit careful here. Gonna get pulled on in. Lots of range to follow up on this one. Curtain call gonna be coming down. The first bullet will find its mark. Different getting picked off on there again.
Yeah, I mean, it's a nice little play there. I mean, obviously Different not recognizing the fact that Blender could be in that bush. It's a nice play by Blender saying, hey, we can get this pick off here. I don't necessarily know how much this is going to change. They might be able to pick up the tier 1. Nadal is pushing on the top side of the map, though. Blender has to be a bit careful.
Yeah, he doesn't have ult, but he's going forward. We'll find the stun. Seraphine ultimate not going to find its mark, but here comes the cease and desist. The Shockwave onto 3, and there is no hope in the world. Blender goes golden, but now he'll go gray. The Zerath falls as well. Bobby and Zeha will limp away from this fight, but ShadowZ feels like they just have to finish this one out. They should even have their minds on game number 3. This one is feeling pretty dang good from them.
Yeah, Freybush is going to have to get out from underneath the tower, but yeah, I completely agree here. You know, for the side of TA Distortion, they tried to change it up a little bit. They went a little bit more of the pick-oriented bot lane, very similar to Seraphine and Ashe, but instead, still not able to play the game.
They're not done. Cleanse and the Gale Force is going to provide some safety, but Nodal under the tower is going to find a double knock-up. It doesn't mean any deaths just yet as they push relentlessly in this mid lane. Sam, looking for a potential flank. He's got respawns coming, but Blender, he's looking for them on his own. He's taking that portal in. Ashero's going to go wide. Different is going to miss that one point blank range. Now Blender, Flash, using the R, looking for Goat BM. He knows he doesn't have Flash, but this is a 5 versus 2. You just straight up don't of your team, and Blender will pay for his sins with his life. Samanusuke goes down as well, and now the push will continue.
Yeah, what a very desperate play there from Blender. By ulti coming through.
On to Zeha, he's got no flash. The Encore's not going to find its mark, but it doesn't matter. The 80 carry is dead. 30-second death timer on that one. They're going to break open the base here. The middle inhibitor will go down. They're going to take the portal out. This game, all ShadowZ.
Yeah, but it's gonna end up backtracking here a little bit. Want to pick up that third dragon of the game. Not quite wanting to just continue pressuring forward in this game, but yeah, I think when it comes to this game at least per se, it definitely feels like they tried to do a little bit of a difference here. This fact of they wanted the pick-oriented bot side of the map, try to match the range of this Ashe and the Seraphine, but still just has not worked out for them. And I think I'm honestly very surprised out of the two enchanters they're banning, that Soraka is the one being banned over the Seraphine. I know they're both very annoying, but I think Seraphine just allows the game to be played so much easier with the Encore and the empowered healing that you have. And that's, I think, my opinion, that would change this game a little bit aspect, because able to play the Ashe because you have the synergy built in already, because you have the extra slow coming through. So maybe that takes different off of the Ashe as well. Go BM has been caught out a little bit.
The flash back off cooldown. Shockwave is going to be used right on his head. Now flashes away. Right of the Arcane. Going to find a couple shots there from perfect tempo, but not going to mean too much as Nodal is chasing down Zeha. Ooh. Just barely has the movement speed to get out of the Infernal Chains there. Now Nodal is getting collapsed upon here. TP coming through. He has the flash. Could just get over the wall here, but he actually wants to fight this one out. Knows he has the Hex Drinker still available. Thinks he has the heals. Thinks he has what it takes in the tank to get this one done, but he will go down. LFT Different going to use that ultimate off as Furry Bush comes over the wall, but I don't think they have what they need to fight this one out. Curtain Call coming down, trying to dissuade their exit from this fight. All for Love might be the potential target. Yeah, he'll be the sacrificial lamb. They are going to lose 2 here. Support and top laner in the death chamber. Nodal biting off a little bit more than he can chew there.
Yeah, definitely just being a little bit too over-aggressive there. I mean, they probably feel like this game is pretty done and dusted, but still, I mean, we've seen crazier things happen. Like, I mean, even to TA Distortion, right? Like, they had a 6,000 gold lead at, like, 25 minutes, and then at the 28th minute, their Nexus exploded. So, definitely we've seen some pretty crazy things happen already in this tournament. So, definitely, especially with this being the grand finals, definitely want to secure the victory in this one. Maybe, like, kind of at least not be, but maybe tighten up a little bit, and making sure they can actually pick up the victory. They do have all their members spawning up, rotating over towards the Baron. That's going to be spawning in about 30 seconds or so time. And, Blender does not quite have flash, so he would have to have the Blast Cone get over the wall, but I believe Furry Bush just took that one to get back over the wall. So really, Blender doesn't really have a great way to enter into the Baron pit, so the flash timer might end up being a very, very crucial thing if he is even able to enter into the Baron pit for a potential steal.
Yeah, Baron on the map in 10 seconds or less. Blender's actually going to find the pickoff here onto Furry Bush. They might have the damage to take this one out. ShadowZ are going to look for the collapse here. Furry Bush staying alive a hell of a long time. Encore now coming through. Wombo combo with the Shockwave, and Nodal is wreaking havoc in the back line, splitting up Team Ambition Distortion, and he is just going to town on Bobby now, who has to flash away, getting himself under tower, but there is no safety for you, not even in your base. Curtain Call is going to come down, trying to clear out some of these minions, trying to keep the Nexus towers alive, but ShadowZ, they have this game in their hands. They can feel it, they can sense it, and they want it right now. Samanusuke will go down, Goat BM goes legendary, the towers will fall, and the Nexus will follow. ShadowZ take a 2-0 lead in this series. They want to pad the stats here a little bit. Blender goes golden as the Shockwave hits him. I don't think they're going to find that one. The Nexus will eventually go down, and we will head to game number 3.
Yeah, victory picked up here for ShadowZ in this game, and honestly, just kind of thinking back, for how both these teams got here, right? Both these teams got here on the back of reverse sweeps. Obviously, when it came to ShadowZ, right? Like they didn't quite have their roster for game 1 and game number 2 against Dorado Gaming Alpha, but when they had it, they basically 3-0'd them. But for TA Distortion, this is not unknown territory for them. They lost the first 2 games of their last series, and then going into it, they basically played much better in 3 games in a row. But I gotta say, ShadowZ is looking very, very good so far in this series. Like just constantly getting really what they want. The Seraphine pick has been working for All for Love, and I think
Mhm.
for Team Ambition, I think they're gonna have to switch it up a little bit here again. Going into game number 3, or else this definitely can very easily be a 3-0 sweep for ShadowZ.
Yeah, plan A definitely didn't work for them. Plan B, not really working any better. We'll see what else they got under their belts. But yeah, ShadowZ with a commanding lead here in this series. 1 win away from being crowned the Fall Invitational Diamond Champions. We're going to take a short break here as we load on for the 3rd game. And we'll see you when we come back. Welcome back, everybody. We are here for game number 3. ShadowZ taking 2 relatively quick victories to start off this series, putting TA Distortion at game point here. And Orion, they're kind of switching things up here. Maybe it's desperation. Maybe it's just all part of the game plan. They're going on to the blue side for game number 3.
Yep, going back over to the blue side here. Like you mentioned, it's been a very dominant series so far from ShadowZ. I'm curious, obviously, what TA is going to end up changing. I honestly doubt that they're going to, for ShadowZ, they're going to change anything at all. 3 bans coming through very, very
Ooh.
quickly. And I like this from ShadowZ,
Mhm.
recognizing that they were going to potentially pick up the Seraphine and say, hey, we'll just ban it away from you. And then all of a sudden, your plan of picking up the Seraphine could go in the trenches. But instead, Seraphine is just not going to be in this game, which I was going to say something that I would have liked to have seen from both these teams. Just because, when I say both these teams, it's been working very well for ShadowZ, but in terms of taking it away
Ooh.
from ShadowZ, it's been a really nice one to see. Varus being locked in here for Zeha on the bot side of the map. ShadowZ could look to play range with the Caitlyn instead, and Nadal back on the Aatrox, feeling very, very confident, basically 3 games in a row.
Yeah, and if they lock in this Kaisa alongside, it's just straight up picking the strongest meta champs you possibly can. Misfortune as well is very, very strong in the current meta. We'll see exactly what they want to go for here. But yeah, Aatrox again for Nodal. It's going to be this Misfortune for them in the bot side. A little bit of a different look from them, but still centered around team fighting with this Misfortune ultimate.
Yeah, absolutely. It's very, very similar from what we've kind of already seen at Z. It's just clumping up together, being the type of ball type of composition except without the AoE here from Seraphine and the encore to come through as well. So it's a bit of a feels bad for Z not actually having that Seraphine, but I would imagine they're going to end up picking some form of that enchanter
Ooh.
type of pick. And we talk about Sam pulling out the Fiora last series against not necessarily the Aatrox, but just pulling it out and doing it to great success.
Mhm.
Is going to pull out the Fiora in this game, backs against the wall, trying to get that potential of a lead over on the Aatrox. It is a very skill matchup oriented, just
Mhm.
because Fiora has the parry. That doesn't always mean that Fiora just outright wins it. Aatrox can still do very well in that lane. And instead, TA dropping the
Ooh.
Enchanter, wanting to go for more of the quick engages,
Yeah.
could leave open for a bit more playmaking coming through from the side of Perfect Tempo.
That is not
That
something we expected out of All for Love at all. Has been much more the Enchanter player throughout this series, but looking to change it up. Leona Varus is going to be their lane of choice.
ooh,
ShadowZ, if they lock in this
ooh.
Zyra, that's a very formidable laning combo.
Oh,
It's going to
oh,
be. It
it
is.
is.
Okay.
It is a very classic combo going way back in time. Basically, I wouldn't be surprised if we see a potential just pot lane power, like both of them just taking Comet, both of them
Mhm.
having so much power. Even though Misfortune Comet obviously was a bit nerfed, I would not be surprised if that is an option that they kind of go for in this
Mhm.
game. Just so much lane pressure. Zyra is still very similar to Xerath in a way, where obviously very, very powerful early, but as the game goes on, he can very easily just kind of get caught out, and the game kind of becomes very hard to play for a mage support type champion, just because you don't really have the ability to survive a lot of situations. Does look like Furry Bush running back the Vi. Definitely gonna opt in for this one. I had a very solid game on it last game. Definitely
Yep.
saw a lot of the engagements with the cease and desist, picking out multiple members of TA Distortion. Looking to run that one back, giving the counter pick over to Goat BM in the mid lane.
Exactly that. Goat BM has performed exceptionally well in this series. Has been outlaning Bobby in both of the first 2 games, and with the counter pick here, we'll be able to likely get the better of that matchup again. Distortion, though, gonna lock in Graves for Blender. Kind of a different look for him as well. Much more carry-oriented than what we've seen out of him.
I think he has played Graves so far in this fraternity specifically.
Mhm.
But when it comes to like we mentioned, like he has been the more carry oriented player, sorry, compared to Furry Bush. But not necessarily pulling out the Graves at all times. TA deliberating on their final pick. It is going to be the
Ooh.
Swain to come through, which is an insta hover from Go BM saying, "Okay, I want the Silas. He tried to pick Silas on me last game. I'm gonna give it to him in this one."
Absolutely stealing away that demonic ascension. Even the Leona ultimate, very, very powerful for the Sylas to get under his belt. So both teams are now on your screens, locked and loaded, ready to go. Orion, what are you seeing out of these two drafts?
It's definitely a huge mix-up once again for the side of TA. A little bit more pick-oriented, easier to play the game when you have
Mhm.
like multiple forms of CC, like the Varus, like Leona, very long-range engaged options. And I think they also have the potential to actually, outright win the top lane matchup. I think so far for Samanuski, they've really only picked so far to nullify the Aatrox on the top side,
Yep.
not let him just go spiraling out of control. Fiora is a matchup that can actually just beat the Aatrox outright in a 1v1.
Mhm.
So I'm curious to see kind of how that one does end up playing out. And also, for the mid lane options here, it is a little bit different for Bobby. Once again, going for another very short range matchup into Goat BM, who is having a fantastic series once again alongside different, who really the bot lane is a bit different here for ShadowZ as well.
Mhm.
You have the mage poking with the Zyra trying to keep the Leona at distance, not ever letting her get an engage off of. But it's the level 1 to level, like, maybe 2 or 3 is gonna be very exciting to see in the bot side because
Yeah.
if I'm perfect tempo, I don't want the Zyra to just get permanent lane advantages. I would honestly be pretty curious to see if TA does a level 1, like, play towards the bot side of the map, like, all 5 members go into the bot side bushes because Zyra likes to post up, right? She likes to have those plants spawning through from her passive to get the extra early advantage when she
Mhm.
casts those spells. So if you catch her laxing, it can be a very easy kill and a bit of a momentum shift going through into game 3 as a possibility. Just an idea, but they might end up looking to go for. But yeah, this one is going to be very exciting to watch.
Absolutely. This Varus Leona kind of has some semblance to that Ashe Seraphine lane that we're seeing. They've got, of course, the ultimate, the CC ultimate out of the AD carry, and some engage tools on this Leona. I think if they get ahead, they are going to have dominance of this lane. They're going to have pick potential. They're going to have lots of CC that they can layer through these fights. So maybe we're going to see Blender try and turn his attention towards that bot side early on. Maybe he's just going to be farming up on the Graves. We'll have to see exactly what he wants to go for. Because you can guarantee Furry Bush on this Vi is going to want to get into these lanes and start influencing early on.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, I think really when it comes down to like he has the ability to really go onto any of these lanes. The cease and desist obviously doesn't work that well into a Fiora because it's very easy to parry and to time that one to come through. Because you might have to do a bit like might have to bait that cooldown to come through from Samanuski, but he has a very easy gank setup on the bot side and into the mid lane as well. Blender gonna be the one to do a little bit more of the power farming, trying to get as
Mhm.
much gold as he possibly can to get those early spiking items, which makes Gray such a powerful champion. So if Fairy Bush is able to affect the lanes once again, or even stop Blender from getting those early advantages farming wise, then all of a sudden we can definitely kind of see a bit of a deja vu moment here for the first 2 games coming through from ShadowZ. So definitely going to be very exciting to watch. Obviously, I think my eyes are going to be more towards once again the bot side of the map with the mid and the bot side. Obviously, top lane is going to be very, very volatile, but
Mhm.
mostly just kind of due to the solo laners, like kind of how these champions tend to operate. But most
Yeah.
of the action is going to end up being towards the middle and the bot side of the map.
Definitely some aggressive lanes there on the bot half of the map. Samanuske on a carry in a must-win game. We'll see what he can get done as well as we load onto the Rift here for game number 3. Team Ambition Distortion are one game away from being knocked out of the tournament, and that means that ShadowZ are one win away from winning it all here at the CCS Fall Invitational. Distortion is switching it up. They're pulling out all the stops here in game number 3 in a must-win scenario. We're going to see if it pays off.
Yeah, I mean, it's going to have to, right? Regardless of, if these are the right type of combinations to do it. Their backs are completely against the wall. Going to have to end up doing another reverse sweep if they even want to potentially win the grand finals here. And really, so far, ShadowZ definitely has been, just such the better team so far, just in this series. There is a ward in that bush. They recognize that Seminuski and Bobby are there. Nadal creeping.
This is the long con.
Yeah, Nadal's going behind him. This is a 4 versus 3.
Yeah, Blender might be the target here. Is now going to get spotted off. Furry Bush is going to go for Bobby. Oh, the chains are going to land. Goat BM on the chase down. Ghost already been popped for Bobby, and now Nodal over the wall. Goat with the flash. One more auto, but Bobby barely able to get himself over that wall. Still big cooldowns burned there. And it is going to mean that this Zyra's a little bit slow to the lane. We'll see what that means for the bot side.
Yeah, Graves is trying to make a play in the jungle here for the blue buff, but Different's already there, just protecting it. He realizes he can't really be in lane by himself against a Varus and a Leona, so he is just going to try to beat up Blender here as much as he possibly can. Not wanting to take that blue buff.
Yeah, he's going to push him off. Like you say, the bot lane has kind of already been sacrificed due to the early roam from All for Love, so they're going to try and catch this wave as it crashes under their tower. They're going to be at a small XP deficit early on in this lane, but with the lane where it is, they should be feeling relatively safe. Level 2 does tick over for perfect tempo and Zeha, but they're going to be all right.
Yeah, I definitely can agree with that. I think it's pretty interesting to see, just kind of how this game is kind of unfolding, right? Because
needs a leash. Look at this.
Yeah, Blender he does end up getting that one, but he finally gets to clear his very first camp, and it's going to be, pretty interesting because we talked about how Graves, is this more farming-oriented type of jungler, especially compared to the Vi. He wants to be kind of keeping up the pace, but so far, I mean, it's the Graves who's the one being put very, very far behind this early on into the game, and it's really going to change also the pace of the bot side here as well. GoPM does get moved up.
Blender wants to go for this, but GoPM, he is not scared. He says, you're just a level 2 Graves, and I've got Furry Bush in my back pocket. Bobby barely limping away. Furry Bush is going to get pulled back in with that never move, but survives with just under 100 HP. Oof. I like this cross map, though, from Furry Bush, heading back towards his own bot side, able to defend his camps. We'll see if Blender can get into the top side, though.
Yeah, he might make a play towards, like you said, the top side camps. Bobby, though...
He surely will just win this 1v1 straight up. There it is. First blood to Goat BM. Consistently getting the better of this mid lane matchup throughout this series.
Yeah, Seminuski is trying to do as best as he can in the early matchup for the Fiora. Actually, Leona diving forward.
They're going to find its mark. All for Love has to flash away. Zeha flashing forward. They're going to find a kill in mid lane. Blender made a return. Able to take out Goat BM, and that's actually massive. He's going to miss a few minions here under this wave. Does have teleport to get back when he spawns, but a couple kills going into the under the belts of the Team Ambition members.
Yeah, actually, I don't think it was a few minions. That was a lot of minions that Goat BM lost there in the mid way, because back when Bobby first got killed there in the mid lane, there was a huge minion wave already there, and Blender able to come through, pick up the kill there on the Goat BM, making sure he can't deny a whole bunch of XP. Saminuski is potentially getting caught out here. Nice parry timing, but a really good buffer there from Aatrox. But it's a really important thing that like a lot of the higher elo players do most times. Is anytime they're about to get CC'd, if they cast an ability, they basically buffer the CC timer, and you don't actually quote unquote get CC'd because you're still basically completing that action. And so a lot of the lower, gold and plat players, you typically don't always see that perfectly every single time. But a really good usage there by Nadal, because if Saminuski dashed forward there when he landed the parry, he still would have took a chunk of damage from Nadal and been under a little bit more threat.
This bot lane, though, is a different story already than what we've seen out of this game or this series. Zeha going to be able to knock off the first plating of the game. Has a CS lead for the first time in this series as well. And, of course, has that kill under his belt. So the start from Team Ambition here is going to be feeling pretty good for them. They're going to look for another play into the mid lane here. Perfect tempo, and Blender wanting to take advantage of this flashless Sylas.
Yeah, he was potentially walking up towards the wave, but GoPM backing off, definitely not wanting to get anything going too crazy. Sam, nice trade there onto Nadal. Really good usage of the parry. Putting Nadal at about 50% HP, but Fairy Bush is right behind him. And with no more parry, they could look to be very,
Blender's
very
here.
aggressive. Blender's behind him, though, yeah.
No flash for Furry Bush. Thinks he has to get away from Samanusuke, but little does he know that he is dashing right into a man with a shotgun. Blender wants to put the finishing touches on this kill, but Furry Bush barely able to get out. He's under tower, and Nadal is going to turn it around. So many Qs landing onto Blender as he just tunnels a little bit onto getting that kill. He's going to go down himself.
Yeah, Blender not having a good game right from the start. A lot of those camps got denied from him. Ended up like just completely being off curve this entire game, and that was a level 4 Graves to a level 6 Aatrox in this game. Definitely feeling just very, very powerful once again for Nadal, and he's built up once again another impressive CS lead. Even though this is a matchup where the Fiora can definitely win out if the timings are always there. But Nadal definitely doing a really good job in this game, constantly landing those sweet spots on those Qs. As Sam does have level 6, he does have the Grand Challenge.
That's the Grand Challenge coming down. Nadal is going to have to be a little bit careful here. He has the flash. Maybe he wants to get over the wall. He can only tank one tower shot, and yeah, instead, he's just going to say, all right, you got me. I'm not going to waste any summoner spells. Just going to suffer this death, and will return to base. Does have the TP to get back.
Yeah, I was almost actually able to get kind of around the corner to flash over the wall, but most likely Sam would have ended up just following the flash anyways, so really it wouldn't have been all that worth to burn that summoner spell to really get awake and save it for another day when he actually would most rather have that summoner spell. But it does mean with the pressure that Nadal is garnering up on the top side of the map, it does like Furry Bush able to walk into the enemy team's jungle and potentially take away even more camps from Blender.
Blender did just tick over to level 6, so has been able to catch himself up at least a little bit. But yeah, we'll see what Furry Bush is going to steal here. Currently on those Raptors, going to grab that camp for himself. Should know that this red buff is up and available too. But Blender is on the way down, and I think Furry Bush, with this level 6 now in, wants to try and make a play for the bot side.
Yeah, exactly. Look at him right now. He's currently already pathing behind the bot side of the map. Zeha does not have flash.
Gonna get slowed down by the E from Misfortune here. LFT different put in so much damage. Cease and desist, and Zeha, he's got nowhere to run. Gonna find his screen gray.
Yep, and I mean, with the wave already that far extended and no real knowledge of where Furry Bush could be, there's not really much Zeha could do in that situation. Obviously, he could have been a little bit more announced with his wave, could have not had it in such a bad position, could have called his jungler around, but his jungler is so far behind. He doesn't really have a jungler at this stage of the game from how far behind he actually is, but look for a play bot side.
Yeah, speaking of the jungler, he wants to make something happen. Collateral damage isn't enough. LFT is limping away from this fight with a sliver of HP. Flash and cleanse just barely enough to keep him up.
Yeah, exactly. And I think, obviously I like the attempt there on the LFT difference because it is just a Misfortune, and Grace Leona still have a lot of damage, even though Blender is very far behind in this game. He is actually now a level up over Furry Bush from getting a lot of those lane minions on the boss side of the map. So catching back up very, very slowly. He's probably still down a lot of gold as Sam. Nice parry there. Grand challenge as well.
Nadal has to be careful here. Uses his own ultimate. That's going to be enough to dissuade the all-in attempt from Sam. Meanwhile, though, TA are going to pick up their first dragon of the game off the little bit of bot pressure that they did get for that all-in onto different.
Yeah, exactly. First dragon of the game is going to feel very, very nice. It is a Hex dragon with a little bit extra attack speed and that ability haste. GoPM has been a bit cautious here. He could have went very aggressive there onto Bobby, but he recognizes his jungler is not really around the mid lane, so he could be under some threat if he were to dive a little bit aggressively forward. You can see not using a single ability on that wave there as Nadal is flash forward as well.
Ooh, really good infernal chains, but Samanusuke is going to find the sweet spot, and it's not enough. Nadal turns it around. He just keeps getting the better of this top lane matchup, and now the wave will crash. Samanusuke is going to miss so much, and Nadal on this Aatrox is a force to be reckoned with.
Yeah, and that's a huge feels back there for Samanusuke. He tried to flash over the ethereal chains there, did not want to get pulled back into a little bit better situation there for the Aatrox, but instead gets pulled back just enough damage from Nadal. And I like the usage of the E there. If you do a short dash on Aatrox, it's basically an auto attack cancel, so able to get a lot of that extra damage that he needed to pick up the kill there onto Samanuski. And like you said, already down plus 30 CS. Eclipse being purchased here from Nadal. This matchup top lane is not really going to get any better.
And Nadal has been such a difference maker, but bot side, that's going to be the Solar Flare, the ultimate from Zeha as well. We're starting to see this bot lane combo come online. Bullet Time will get the flash out of the enemy Varus, and here comes Goat BM. He's going to get spotted out with this control word, though. Not going to be able to look for a play there. This Leona Varus combo starting to put in work.
Yeah, he does have Demonic Ascension stolen away from the Swain. He's probably doing a good job backing away. Dude does not want to let Goat BM get another kill here in the mid lane. And yeah, I like the usage there from Perfect Tempo. Even, I'm not sure if All for Love had flash back up or not for that initial solar flare, but they just pop it right on his head, and Goat BM is looking, I would imagine the cooldown is kind of running out here, doing a bit of chunk damage, but still gets the ghost out as well.
Yeah, gets the wave shoved in, knew that he had some reinforcements on the way, so going to be able to push Bobby out of the lane for now. There's no objective on the map, though, so mid lane priority not going to mean too much for the time being, but the solo lanes of ShadowZ definitely showing up here in game number 3. Blender, though, he's into the bot side. He really wants to continue the power that they're seeing out of this Varus Leona from Perfect Tempo and Zeha. All for Love is here, looking to dissuade the dive. Different is going to be CC'd up. The Zyra plant's going to cause a knockup, but that's not going to be enough. And now All for Love, he's stuck alone under this tower. Blender will pick up the... No! He trades it back over. They mismanaged the turret aggro, and All for Love is going to walk away with 2 kills to his name.
Yeah, and I gotta say, that was a pretty ambitious dive there. It does result in a 2 for 2, but that, with the mid lane pressure that Goat BM is having onto Bobby constantly, that's gonna be a mid-tier 1 tower already falling at the 12.5-minute marker. If they almost kept the Herald alive there, could have almost got a second crash in. But Zeha trying to get a return tower take as well. Multiple members rotating into the top side of the map. We could see a bit of some spice happening here. The bot side, sorry, top side.
ShadowZ have to be a bit careful here. They've got 3 members to Team Ambition's 4. Flash coming out of Furry Bush already. He's on the run. Nodal trying to fight out Samanuski. The ultimate from the Fiora coming down, but there's going to be Perfect Tempo coming in. The stolen ultimate by Goat BM is going to provide so much space, and they should just be able to walk themselves out of this one. Another Steam Blade. Nodal's not really scared. The Evermove's going to pull them back in the Demonic Ascension. Bobby's found them out. They're going to find the kills. Nodal's on the run. They get them both.
Yeah, huge kills there. I like the initiative from Perfect Tempo. Able to get on top of, the backline there. Able to buy a decent amount of time. But like you said, the stolen solar flare there from Leona, from the Silas actually, able to stop the initial engagement. They just kept going. They recognized, hey, we have the numbers advantage. We invested so many people up here. We're losing gold on the bot side of the map. If we don't make this play happen, this game is looking incredibly doomed for us. So they pick up the 2 kills, even though all of this gold is coming down here for the side of on the bot side here for All for Love and Different. Not going to get the last turret play here. Could pick up the turret as a whole when the turret plates fall down. But instead, the mini wave gets here just in time. Perfect Tempo is back on the bot side of the map. Blender is seen in the mid lane, so if they really wanted to, they could make a play for this bot lane tower, knowing that Graves is in the mid lane.
Not sure they're going to have the time to do so with the rotations coming through. They are just going to back away, respecting the threat of the corrupting chains and any sort of follow-up that they may have. Dragon is now on the map. Both teams in the area. That's a big bullet time onto Perfect Tempo, but the W keeping him alive. Those extra resistances so crucial in tanking a lot of that burst. But now here goes the Silas. Goat BM looking for some good chunk damage onto the enemy jungler, and Blender has been pushed off the map for the time being.
Yeah, Dragon is still a point of contention, though. Almost landing those chains there from Goat BM would have most likely resulted in Bobby's death there. But still, Dragon is still being very fought over, and I'm surprised Distortion really wants to fight over this Dragon, just because the power is definitely in ShadowZ's hands.
When challenge comes down, Solar Flare's going to miss its mark, and they're just going to turn it around. Samanuski, as he's in a world of pain. The stolen Demonic Ascension is going to be enough. All for Love finds the finishing touches on that one. And ShadowZ, again, just playing these moments better. They're going to go back onto the Dragon.
Yeah, like I said, like it's just like the power differential currently is just really, really big. We see 3 items already being purchased here for the side of... Actually, well, there are, yeah, the 3 mythics, sorry, for ShadowZ already being purchased. We only see 2
Blender into the
on
pit.
the side. Blender is in, yeah.
3 versus 3. GoBM a little bit slow here. The smite is going to come in for Blender. On the run is Furry Bush, but he's going to eat the corrupting chains and so much damage on the other side. We thought that ShadowZ had that dragon in their grasp, but the collapse from Bobby and the ult from Ziha is going to get them to claim it themselves. Blender with a good smite. Getting that one for himself, but they might have overstayed their welcome here. Blender looking for the blue buff invade, doesn't realize that the collapse is coming down. Different doesn't have the bullet time though, so can't open up with that one. The collapse is not going to provide enough.
Ooh, parry.
Ooh, really nice parry, Nodal. Running for the hills, has flash available, and meanwhile, bot side perfect tempo is being engaged on, but he's just going to turn around himself. The Zyra goes pop, and now GoBM, he's got to run for the hills. Dashes over the wall, Different doing the same. Back to the top lane fight, Samanusuke still not getting the better of this matchup, and Nodal wants to find the chase down. Has the flash available, but can he close the gap? It doesn't look like it. Samanusuke will squeak on out.
Yeah, Nadal is potentially looking to cut him off in the river, but Sam is doing a good job just walking straight forward, not really letting Nadal really have that opportunity getting on top of him. But Nadal is still kind of looking, but instead ends up backing off towards the Rip Throat that is spawning up. And I think, you know, one of the good things that Distortion is doing is they're recognizing just how squishy the Zyra actually is. Anytime she looks for a play, she goes aggressively forward. Leona is just dashing onto her. The Varus ultimate's coming through. So much damage from the Empowered W from this Varus is just popping Zyra like a balloon. Even though the Rich Herald is being taken here by ShadowZ. Blender.
Uh-oh, cease and desist. He gets yoinked back in, knocked into the air. They gift it over to GoBM. And ShadowZ will take control. I don't know if they meant to insta-pop that Herald, but they're going to do it nonetheless.
Now, that's just a classic support picking up the Herald and trying to use Sweeper instead of using the Herald. So a bit unfortunate there, but this could actually result in a mid-tier 2 tower because Blender's dead. They have the man advantage here, so it is going to result in a good thing overall. Maybe just not the best usage of the Herald per se. It's not really going to result in anything else. Tempo flashing forward, but a nice answer from Goat using his flash of his own.
Yeah, getting out of that solar flare sweet spot, making sure there's no engage to be had. It feels like for Team Ambition, a lot of their hope is on the back of Ziha, and they have been able to play around him fairly successfully. 4-1 and 2, has the shield bow. Ooh, just gonna miss there on the corrupting chains, looking for that 1v1 kill. But shield bow plus Gwynsu's, this Varus is looking very scary.
Yeah, he's definitely a very strong point for the team here for TA Distortion. Probably one of the few so far just in this game. Obviously, Graves has now hit the 2-item marker as well. So he's going to start feeling very, very powerful as well. But it definitely does kind of feel like this game is in Zeha's hands for a lot of basically probably the rest of the way. And you know, when you think about this series so far as a whole, I think, you know, one of the things that ShadowZ have just continuously done well is their team fighting has kind of been on point so far throughout this entire series. It mostly kind of relied on the Ash Arrow landing from Different and able to kind of pile on the CC, but Different
does have to flash away. Kind of haphazardly sidesteps a couple of those skill shots coming out and then flashes the solar flare to keep himself alive. That was a little bit lucky, but he will come out still alive.
Yeah, and I think, you know, for the side of, for Zeha, and we're not really for Zeha, but for Perfect Tempo, I think he could have been a little bit more aggressive there. He let Different basically walk into him, and then as he was walking away, then he ended up using the solar flare there. Does still get the flash, so it is still a net positive exchange. But still, I definitely would like to see that trigger be punched just a little bit quicker next time, because he basically is walking into a very rough situation. Could have got the cleanse and the flash out of him there instead. Just gets the flash, still has options for the cleanse to get rid of some of the CC they have with the Varus ultimate or the Leona ultimate in the future.
Absolutely true. Different, though, won't have flash for this next ensuing fight, and likely that will be around this next dragon, spawning in about 35 seconds. Both these teams are probably going to want to fight over this. It's Soul Point for Team Ambition. If they can find a pick, if they can find a way in, that would be a huge pickup for them. ShadowZ definitely wanting to stop that from going over, especially with the current vision control that they have in the area. Definitely have taken up residence in this bot side river. GoPM pushing out Bobby here in the bot side. The stolen Ascension is going to be in. Bobby actually has to ghost away the chains, who are not quite going to find their mark.
Yeah, GoPM actually going second item Rileys here. Doing a bit of a Swain build in this game. Pretty interesting to see. Actually, does get the ghost out as Nadal is pretty far forward.
Yeah, he's got to be careful here. He's going to use his ultimate, the World Ender. Big knockup from the Zyra ultimate. And here comes the Misfortune. Bullet time across the back. They're going to find some, but Bobby and Samanusuke, they don't want this fight to end here. The solo lanes are looking for the flanks. Zeha's still alive. GoPM in the middle of it all, looking to go forward. The Kingslayer's not enough, and Team Ambition have found their fight.
Yeah, ShadowZ just being way too overconfident in that situation. Yes, they are winning this game. They do have the gold lead, but Nadal just going in way too over-aggressively, just eats such a chunk of damage. And while it was a very good bullet time there from Different, dealing a lot of backline damage, we saw Samanusuke able to get on the backline with the flank. Blender able to get on top of Different there, able to kind of take out the backline. And then we saw also as well Zeha able to stand his ground with the enhanced attack speed from killing a target that you get from the Varus passive, and able just to mow through people in that team fight. Now sitting at 6-1-4, definitely the game is now in his hands to carry this one if he wants his team to continue on in the series.
Definitely the solo lanes putting in work in that fight, but Zeha, he is the man with the plan heading through the late stages of this game. We're just cresting the 22-minute mark, and Blender is camping out in this bush. He's got a lot of damage. The Flash Maul for Love is going to get himself out of that Solar Flare, but again, these cooldowns are burning key summoner spells on the side of ShadowZ.
Yeah, and I think, you know, for the side of, you know, TA Distortion, they're starting to feel a little bit better about themselves, right? Like, obviously, Game 1, Game 2, definitely were not very close by any means so far. And really for Game 3, obviously, they are still down in gold as Nadal trying to get a couple of cheeky little bit of damage there onto Samanusuke. But yeah, I think, you know, for the side of ShadowZ, they feel in this game, like, it's probably the first time in this entire series at all, like, we're like, hey, we can like legitimately win this game and start feeling like, you know, motivated and really start playing their hearts out in this one. Because like, the series is not over by any means.
It's absolutely not. You got to win 3 games to win this series, and if only won 2, job's not done. Team Ambition fighting for their lives in this game, showing up big in a must-win scenario here in game number 3. Obviously, they still got to close it out. They still got a long way to go before they do put the finishing touches on this ShadowZ base. As bot side, Bobby's going to get caught out here. It's going to be the ultimate coming through, but oh my goodness, can they finish him off? No, the Demonic Ascension is so strong. Perfect Tempo is here as well. The Zonias will buy a moment, but that is all it can afford. GoPM gonna try and sidestep that Zenith Blade. It's not gonna happen. The root, the ult, everything coming through. Perfect Tempo picks up the kill, and they get the dive on the top side. Team Ambition look like a different team here in this 3rd game.
Yeah, and all of a sudden, they finally have a gold lead, like, in the later stages of the game as well. I like the attempt onto Bobby once again, but Perfect Tempo, right place, right time, able to counteract the dive there, not letting his mid laner dive, and like you mentioned, the Demonic Ascension able to just survive for such a long period of time there. And all of a sudden, this game, like I said earlier, like, you know, it was kind of feeling like ShadowZ was winning this one very, very similar to Game 1, Game 2. But TA Distortion feeling very, very good in this one. We're 2 minutes away from an Infernal Soul spawning as well. That's going to really boost this team to feel like, okay, like all of a sudden, like this is now our game to lose.
Absolutely. If anyone loves an Infernal Soul, it is Varus and Graves. Those 2 champs with so much burst damage and potential, they love to pick up that soul. It's going to be on the map in just under 2 minutes. Furrybush and the rest of ShadowZ know that they have to make something happen before that does spawn. If they can find a pick with the Vi ultimate, with the Zyra damage, maybe they can contest for that. But as it stands, this lead for the side of TA Distortion is starting to look pretty good for them.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think we are going to get a bit of a replay coming through here on the side. As you see, like, yeah, the top side of the map, you know, We saw the continuous trades from Fiora. He is doing a much better job to lower the cooldowns, and he has the Divine Sunderer as well. Also purchased here, allowing him to get these trades in. But here's the dive, right? Trying to get onto Fiora onto the lane here, but a nice solar flare there, stunning out 2 members there from Perfect Tempo. And that's what I was talking about, being in the right place, right time, counteracting that dive there. Doing a nice job. I feel like Perfect Tempo hasn't had the best series so far, because he's been mostly on these type of enchanters coming through, and just alone, hasn't really been able to do all that much. Didn't have a great Seraph game either, but this game definitely stepping up for his team, and really so far the entirety of Team Ambition Distortion stepping up, trying to clear some wards around this Baron, potentially looking for a play up here, right? Zeha getting slowed up. There's not really anyone around him to threaten onto this Varus. He does have basically Summoner Spell check. We do see Flash down on Blender and Bobby for the side of TA Distortion. And if you look over for ShadowZ, we've got Goat BM and Nadal not having Flash, and also All for Love as well. So All for Love already getting a decent chunk just from one Semanuski Q.
Yeah, that was just one sweet spot for about 30% of his HP. Zyra definitely does not want to be fighting the Fiora. Plant Lady kind of loses to the Duelist. And, they're going to find a really nice pullback with the Ever move. This Aatrox is trying to buy time for the team, but he's stunned in place, and it's not going to be enough. Goat BM thought he had the flank, but with his top laner dying, it makes it so much harder. They have managed to kite out the Demonic Embrace. There's no ultimate on Leona. There's no ultimate on Varus. Goat BM, he's into the pit. He's got the Demonic Ascension himself. He wants to try and go for the fight. The Dragon down to half HP. Here goes Furry Bush, but yeah, the Silas just gets eviscerated, and everyone will follow. LFT different. He flashed over the wall, but Samanusuke predicted that one, but it doesn't matter. Zeha with the flash Q will pick it up, and pings are going on to the Baron. They've already got the soul. They're looking for the double buff.
Yeah, and once again, TA Distortion winning another fight there. I love the first initial pick there onto Nadal. He is probably their tankiest member, and we've seen Aatrox just in the series alone in Nadal's hands, just constantly taking over fights. And really, and I like the attempt from Goat BM, but he did not have stasis ability. He had already used the stopwatch, so wasn't able to keep himself alive when he dived so aggressively forward. Maybe he forgot he didn't have it yet, or he just for some reason just dove forward that aggressively, maybe thinking that the Swain ulti would just keep him alive that entire time. But yeah, now all of a sudden this game is just completely flipped on its head. It looked like it was coming after a couple of fights, right? We saw the top lane exchange, the bot lane exchange. Okay, 1,000 gold lead, 2,000 gold lead. Okay, TA Distortion, they're coming back. They've been in this position before. Their last series was a complete reverse sweep. Can they do it again?
They are on their way here in this game at number 3. Looking like they're going to force a game 4 situation. I don't really see many avenues back into this game from ShadowZ, barring a massive mistake from the Team Ambition lineup. But they've been playing this one calm, cool, and collected so far. And they now have a Baron buff. They now have Infernal Soul, but All for Love. Ooh, not quite going to find that one. Furry Bush was ready for the follow-up. But without that initial CC finding its mark, they can't push forward for more.
Yeah, it's definitely going to be all about the siege here with the side of Team Ambition Distortion. They're going to want to get as many of these standing structures as possible using all that Baron power. Even though their siege isn't all that great, they have so much setup with the Leona ultimate and the Varus ultimate Chain of Corruption to come through. They have a lot of ways just to walk at a tower and just press their ultimates and just deal so much damage just to back people off of them. So really, I don't imagine these towers standing there.
Whoa, Blender! Oh my gosh, he just flashes forward. Chick, boom, casts the ultimate indifferent. He's got to go back to base to heal up. That was a flash expended from Blender. Didn't quite get him the kill. So maybe a little bit of an overextension, but not going to be punished for it.
Yeah, I think maybe if there was more members on his side, being like, hey, I can one-shot this guy if you guys are here with me. They could have potentially picked up the kill there. Instead, do get about 80% of the HP bar, and it does result in a tier 2 as well, also falling down. Goat BM taking a lot of damage, as it does look like top DC is coming through here for Nadal. Goat BM could make the case that they're fighting there, potentially, right? Because he took a bunch of damage, but that's just me.
Yeah, hard to say. That did look really weird.
Nah,
Nadal,
yeah, I'm
he
just
he
messing.
he hit the blast cone, and then like it almost looked like he was stuck in the wall.
Yeah.
And you kind of saw Team Ambition Distortion go, is he okay? Did he just DC? Should we
Mhm.
try and go on him? But then the pause came through. So, yeah, I don't think there's anything too crazy going on in the mid lane, hopefully. And hopefully we can get everyone reconnected to the game here. But it looks like Team Ambition are pushing us to a game 4 here. They've got the Baron buff that just fell off of them, actually. And they haven't yet to break the base. So they do still have to put the finishing touches on here. And they do have to be careful because there is some engage options on the side with Furry Bush on the Vi. You know, we still haven't really seen an impactful bullet time from different, but if they can find something big like that, they could fight their way back into this one.
Yeah, they have a lot of AoE damage, like you're mentioning, with the Zyra, with the Misfortune, able to layer all that damage. Cameras can potentially result in a kill, but if you just look at, like, obviously when we get back into game, the item difference all of a sudden is just piling on. Like Fiora is up like almost 1,500 gold. Zeha's up almost 5,000 gold over ever different in this game. Definitely wanting to make sure that his team has a chance to keep on playing in the grand finals. Definitely does not want to get swept up. I think didn't they get swept in ADL, I believe?
I don't know what the
So
match score was,
yeah,
but
but yeah, definitely do not want a rerun at least of that instance, right, where things were a bit unfortunate for them for the last time. But this game definitely feels like it's Team Ambition Distortions to win. They have a close to an 8,000 gold lead, knocking on the door of the base here of ShadowZ, and really kind of have to put the finishing touches on, right? We see the damage that Blender are able to do, even with how far he gets set back, right? Like that, like he was like completely out of the game. All
yeah,
of a sudden, he got a couple of kills, he got some lane minions to come through, and all of a sudden, he's basically just one-shotting anything he sees at this stage of the game with 3.5 items under his belt. So this is Team Ambition, ultimately, kind of dotting their I's, crossing their T's here, but we've seen them lose from this position before in a
we
very
have.
similar instance, right? Like
Yep,
they had full pressure. They might not have had an Infernal Soul in that game, but still,
I don't think so.
6,000 gold. They lost the game like 3 minutes later. So,
Mhm.
for Team Ambition Distortion, obviously with your backs against the wall, you cannot have those mistakes coming really through at all anymore if you expect to just have to win the series.
You'd like to think that they have reviewed that game that they threw away and fixed some of their mistakes for a situation like this in the grand finals. So you'd like to say, okay, they made that mistake before. They're not going to make it again here. They've got an Infernal Soul. They've got a 8,000 gold lead. But you never know, right? ShadowZ has had their number through this season or through this series. Yes, this game has looked a little bit different, but definitely have to mention it. I like that you bring that up, Orion, because it does make it a little bit tense. If that's in the back of their minds, making them a little bit nervous, they could maybe make mistakes that they wouldn't otherwise. And it definitely can be scary for them. Looks like it's taking a little while for this connection issue to get solved. Seems a bit weird because Nodal's connection is fine. His screen is just frozen. So hopefully he can figure that one out.
Yeah,
Has now reconnected to the game. We'll see if that is all we need.
yeah, exactly. So hopefully, we will be getting in very, very shortly. 'Cause I know, at least for me, it's like I want to see kind of how this game ends up planning out because, like we saw, like just kind of thinking back at least a little bit to how the bans and the draft went. Right, ShadowZ
Mhm.
recognize that Team Ambition Distortion do play a little bit Seraphine themselves, so they chose the blue side, ended up banning away the Seraphine. So
Yep.
this could kind of be, Team Ambition Distortion saying, hey, even if they go back on the blue side, if we ban away, if we end up banning away the Seraphine, we could potentially have a way back in the game as we are going back to live here. Like I said earlier, basically knocking on the door of ShadowZ's base. Major objectives aren't spawning for another 3 minutes here, so definitely expecting Team Ambition Distortion just to kind of stay on the map, pressure these outer towers. The only one left is the tier 2 on the bottom side of the map, so that's where a lot of the members are rotating over, trying to play a little bit safer. Definitely don't want to just go crazy into the base of ShadowZ, because it's definitely where you can kind of still potentially lose some of those fights. So just playing these objectives, playing slowly, playing safely, making sure they can get as much as they possibly can.
Yeah, Baron buff will be wearing off shortly here. Oh, there's the burst from Blender. GoPM has the Demonic Ascension, but he has some people coming to try and kill him. He's got to flash himself on out of there. Huge damage out of this Graves, just absolutely eviscerating All for Love. And that might be all they need to put the finishing touches on this game. They have now broken the base. They're going to take an inhibitor in the bot side. The inhibitor in the mid lane will be the focus. Now, GoPM, he actually wants to go for this kill, and he's going to get it. So now 4 versus 4 on the map with Blender in the Death Chamber. This could be a potential flank from GoPM.
Ooh, he
doesn't have an ultimate, but he is looking to corral them towards his team. Still very, very healthy health bars on the side of Team Ambition, so they will be able to just get out as a 4-man squad.
Yeah, definitely not feeling confident there and taking the 4v4, which, to be honest, I don't necessarily blame them. They are still very far behind in this game, and if they would have lost that fight, they could have very easily just ended up losing the game right afterwards. But instead, they end up resetting and potentially waiting until this Elder or the Baron ends up spawning here in about a minute and a half to 2 minutes time. But still, if you look at the base, right, like you already cracked the 2 inhibitors, you already have so much leverage in this game. There's nothing really stopping the side of, Team Ambition Distortion just to walk into the top side of the map and potentially threaten that tier 3 tower before these major objectives do end up spawning.
Minute on that Elder. Just over a minute and a half on the Baron. Both teams will have their eyes on those spawn timers. Elder Dragon definitely is a massive come from behind resource. But with Zeha approaching, actually already has full build. GA now completed, has that resurrection option available. They're going to be first to the area here on this Elder Dragon spawn. I don't think there's a way for ShadowZ to force their way into a river when it's already occupied by the Team Distortion squad.
Yeah, exactly. And Sam is already going up to the top side.
GoPM.
Yeah, being cut out.
I don't know what he's doing down here. He has his Zonias. He's healing up a little bit with the Demonic Ascension, but he's not long for this world. Bobby will grab that one. That should mean Elder, and Elder, honestly, should mean game. Team Ambition, maybe just one team fight away from getting on to that game number 4.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, and like we said, I mean, for Team Ambition Distortion, obviously this game was looking a bit dicey for a good little bit while. I think maybe for the first 10 to 15 minutes of this game, it kind of felt like ShadowZ was looking to do a clean sweep of this game. But they said, you know what? Nope, I'm not going to end up doing that. Furry Bush, yeah, exactly. He is wrapping around.
He's spotted out and he doesn't know it. They saw him on the mid lane wave and now they're going to flash over the wall, try to keep him out of this pit, but he's in. The smite will not be in time. Dragon still at 3,000 HP. Excellently played there from the squad of Team Ambition, and now pings into the bot side. They think they can just walk this one in.
Yeah, I mean, you got to go for something, right? The game is basically over if Elder ends up and falling here. GoPM is respawning. They don't really have any wave clear either, besides a bullet time from different. Oh, the Swain W.
Oh. Samanuski going forward. The execution will come through. Different is the first to fall. Nodal and All for Love running for the hills. They're in their base platform, but Zeha, he doesn't care. Putting some pop shots in them anyways. Trying to find some revenge from what they did to him in games 1 and 2. The second Nexus Tower will fall, and the Nexus will shortly after. Team Ambition will extend the series at least one more game.
Yep, not going to bed just yet, is all our viewers are saying now. Not in bed by 10 by any means going into this one. But yeah, I think for the side of Team Ambition Distortion, I think they did a much better job in this game, especially in the mid to late game, right? Much better job. They had more pick-oriented options with the Varus ultimate and the solar flare from Leona, actually able to cause a lot of the pick to come through, even though like you still had the enchanter from All for Love, even though it was a little bit more mage-oriented. They got him off Seraphine. They were able to play I'm curious to see like if ShadowZ. I'm wondering if ShadowZ is going to go right back to that Aatrox pick. Definitely worked out for them a lot so far in the series. I know Seminuski started doing very, very well as the game went on, but
Mhm.
early stage of the game, Nadal was destroying him up on the
Yeah.
top side, like plus like 50, plus 60 CS in the
Mhm.
first like 15 to 20 minutes or so of that game. GoPM could lock in his Akali. Definitely has had some pretty stout performances so far already on that champion.
Not
It
something he
is.
goes for a ton, but is going to have it here in this one. Something to dive the backline, get on top of this Varus, and wreak havoc as he can. Team Ambition. We'll see if they go for something similar than what they had last game. Obviously, they already have the Varus, they already have the Leona. Maybe they want a Swain pick here into the Akali. Seems like maybe a decent option.
Mhm. Definitely could be. I'm curious, kind of like maybe the Silas could come through once again
Yeah.
for the side of Bobby here instead. Ended up going to go a little bit more of the control mage here. The
Hmm.
Oriana still is like some decent playmaking here with the shockwave that we've already seen just in this series alone from GoPM. So I'm curious if he's kind of able to kind of turn that tie that we kind of already have seen. A Trundle ban is going to come through. Uh, because obviously, for the side of for the Steam for Furry Bush, he has
Ooh.
played some Trundle games. Aatrox finally taken away from Nadal there.
Yeah.
Maybe Seminuski didn't want to play his own version of the Aatrox this time around, just wanted to completely take that one away. I would imagine Seminuski is going to end up getting the counter pick here in this one. I would imagine you just slam Blinder's jungler here,
Yeah.
just kind of depending on what he wants to play here. A lot of his he banned away the Kindred, banned away the Grays, don't necessarily have that many options left for him. Curious to see, is he going to go for the tanky option or is he going to go for a little bit
Ooh.
more of a carry in the Hecarim? I'm curious what this means for Saminuski. I would imagine it's going to end up being some form of a tankier option up there
Right.
on the top side of the map because you already have three champions that are very reliant on resources. You add in a fourth one, things can get pretty spicy as the game goes on when it comes to just having very limited resources for four champions.
Looks like Nadal might be taking the Sejuani here in this game. Obviously, could go jungle. See how that does shake out, but that will be the lock-in for Shadow Z. And again, it's counterpick for Samanuske, like you say. So Sejuani blind in the top side feels pretty safe, but maybe they want to flex it, set being hovered.
Yeah, I would imagine like we talked about how Nadal is a bit more of a bruiser type of player in the top laners. Like I would
Mhm.
like Sejuani doesn't necessarily feel like his type of champion. He likes to kind of be the carry, likes to kind of have the game in his hands. And oh well, never mind. If he locks in Scion, definitely would be a little bit out of his overarching type. But they're recognizing like, okay, our team fighting is incredibly strong with the Sivir, like with Sivir Yumi, like massive, very beefy front line. You have a Kali
Yeah.
trying to one shot a backline option. They're debating a couple of options here. Obviously, Vayne would be very good into the Scion specifically. I don't necessarily know how it would operate as the game kind of goes on. It would make for a very spicy top lane option here if they do
Yep.
end up going for it, hovering over a couple of different pieces. Gonna have to wait and see. It is gonna be the Yone
Ooh.
instead. Another very
Okay.
resource oriented champion here,
Hmm.
gonna be very spicy to see because typically it's like when you start having all these champions that need a bunch of gold to actually function very well as the game kind of goes on.
Hmm.
Typically, the map just kind of becomes so limited with the resources. Like laners will start taking camps. So this Hecarim gonna have to be on top of the game in the early stages, get as much gold as he possibly can, and start really running over the early stages.
Yeah, I'd like to see this Hecarim go for the chem tank, frontline type of build. Obviously, we do see some other iterations of build types and to build paths, but I would like to see this Hecarim be a little bit more frontline. They have very reliable damage in the Varus, the Oriana, and the Yone. So with the front line of Leona Hecarim, I think this team composition definitely can start coming together. But Shadow Z, I mean, they got Yumi Sivir, right? They got a front line to go with it. They got an Akali to kind of negate the Varus as much as possible, give him something to deal with in these team fights. So it feels like maybe they can just play a scaling strategy here with the Sejuani, the Scion, and then of course the Sivir Yumi.
Yeah, it's gonna be interesting to see, right? Because obviously, when you think of front-to-back team fighting, ShadowZ basically has exactly what you would want out of it. You have the hyper carry, 80 carry. You have Yumi on top of it, attached to it, able just to have so much damage with the extra adaptive force that Yumi does end up bringing. And then you have obviously when it comes to basically everyone else, like just protecting the Sipper as much as you possibly can. But Varus is known as a tank shredder with the empowered W's that he has to come through,
Mhm.
right? Because you have so much of that ability, because your W is the max health damage ability to come through. So, while these frontliners are going to be very, very tanky and like definitely not squishy, Varus can make them feel very, very squishy the more HP that they get as the game kind of goes on. So, definitely going to be very much about that front by team fighting. Can the Hecarim, can the Yone find their way onto the back line here, onto Sivir, kind of disrupt her, not really allowing her to team fight all that well? Or is the front, because in my opinion, ShadowZ definitely do have the better front line. So it's going to be up to Hecarim,
Yeah.
up to the Yone to get back in the back line, allow
Mhm.
Sivir just to not do that much damage and
Right.
able to really, just pile on top of her and to see if you can actually kill her through the Yumi and through all the extra summoner spells that they're going to have in this game.
How does this Yone matchup go into the Scion? Because if this Yone is ahead, that dive becomes so much more scary. So,
Mhm.
do you think this is a matchup that Samanosuke on this Yone can get an advantage on and then push that into some of those mid game fights that you're talking about, or is this going to be a pretty tough matchup for him with Warden's Mail and a Thorn Mail and things like that for this Scion?
Yeah, I think the early stages of the game is definitely more Scion favor, just because Scion actually does some pretty reliable damage with the Q that he has. Can't remember
Hmm.
the exact name of it, but it definitely does. You hold it down, it actually does provide a really good chunk of damage. And Yona doesn't really have a great way of tanking that one up, but he does have ways of dodging out on that ability when he gets access
Right.
to his E, and he also can proc his shield on it as well.